Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei never killed by Raynare and got power early part 3. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the JCT1345 for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. Come on Issei. Tiamat commanded as she thrusted her fist forward, easily shattering a small red magic circle Issei was attempting to defend with and knocking the boy to the ground. That's pathetic, that circle couldn't stop a hummingbird. Issei sat up off of the ground as he glared upwards at his instructor. It's not like I'm not trying. It's way harder than it looks. The boy whined. No complaining Issei. All of the devils can form working magic circles and none of their magical potentials are anywhere as high as yours. Tiamat offered a hand to Issei, who begrudgingly took it and returned to his feet. You just need to focus harder. You're a good student, that should be simple for you. Easier said than done. Issei said as he dusted his clothes off. Usually when I fight I relax myself and totally clear my mind. If I have to focus on casting spells, it would just slow my reaction time down. If your reaction time was fast enough, you wouldn't need to block attacks with magic circles, would you? The blue-haired dragon joked. If you took more time to think while you fought, your attacks might be less predictable. Don't worry, as you master them, spells will become like second nature to you. Eventually you should be able to do them without much thought. Until then maybe we should move on to a new type of spell. Tiamat stepped closer to the boy and held out her hand. She turned her palm so it was facing upwards, suddenly a golden-orange flame burst from her skin. Flame magic. This type of magic doesn't take as much focus to control, rather it intensifies as its user's emotions do. In other words, it's perfect for you. Issei looks closely at the bright flame, carefully studying every detail of the burning ball. So, how do I do it? Think burning thoughts. Tiamat explained, causing Issei to raise an eyebrow. Focus on your hand and imagine fire. Desire fire, want fire to appear. Use powerful emotions to combust the power inside you. Alright, I'll give it a shot. Issei focused on his palm. He stared intently at the spot on his hand where he wanted the flame to appear. Intensity grew as Issei's stares failed to combust a flame. Minutes to pass by before finally a bright red flame exploded from nowhere. The viewpoint expanded, revealing the flame was about as big as one produced by a handheld lighter. Wahahahaha. Laughter poured out of Tiamat's mouth as she observed the pitiful flame produced by her student. Haha, very funny. An annoyed Issei fired back at his master. Suddenly the flame grew to a more respectable size. There, that's better. Issei tossed a fireball between his hands. A small grin formed on his face as he marveled at his skill. Huh, this is pretty cool. Issei threw a plume of flames forward, striking a small shrub and setting it ablaze. Fire magic, huh? Yeah, I can work with that. Later, after the training session. Issei sat on the orc's couch as he made a small fireball fly around his fingertips. Oh, great. Riaz commented. Yet another destructive toy for the battle freak to play with. The red-headed devil scoffed, causing Issei to quickly release the spell, as if he had been caught doing something wrong. Give him a break, Riaz. Let Issei play with his fire. Akeno chirped in, defending Issei. He learned a new spell, this is a very important day for him. Ugh. Riaz relented. You know I don't like fire, Akeno. Yeah. But you do like Issei. Akeno said as she dropped down right next to Issei, close enough so that her body was touching. As Riaz fumbled in an embarrassed state, Akeno leaned in extremely close to Issei and whispered lightly in his ear. It's been 2 whole days, but you haven't done anything about the Raynare situation. The chill shivered down Issei's spine, catching him off guard and causing him to move away from the dark-haired devil. I know. What am I supposed to say? Hey Raynare, remember that time I dumped you and left you in a park? Sorry about that, now let's be best friends. Issei said in a mocking tone. Akeno didn't have an answer, so a recently calmed Riaz picked up her slack. Well, you gotta say something. You think it's awkward? You're not the one who got dumped. So you know about it too. Issei sighed in defeat. Of course I do. Akeno can't hide anything from me. Riaz said with confidence, but she was secretly admiring how crafty she was. I know I have to do something, but what? Issei said as he fell back in his seat. Angry glares bearing down on him from the 2 girls. Issei quickly sat up and was back on guard. Alright. I'll go talk to her. Issei left the coach as the 2 girls softened their expressions. Akeno stood up next to the boy and gave him a bright smile. I'm proud of you Issei, you're doing the right thing. Yeah. Issei said as he pocketed his hands before sulking off towards Raynare's room, leaving the 2 alone. Ria's posture stiffened as she brought a small cup of tea to her lips. After a quick sip she turns her attention back towards Akeno. I don't know about this. Do you really think he's recovered enough emotionally to take this big of a step? Akeno turns to her master with a small smirk across her face. What I think is that you're afraid to lose to her a second time. What Ria stepped backwards, her face burning with a bright red blush. I have no idea what you're talking about, Akeno. I'm just worried about him, that's all. Ria's quickly crossed her arms in defiance. If you say so. Akeno then turns away from Ria's and looks off down the hallway where Issei had disappeared. As she looked down the dark corridor, her expression slightly softened. Outside of Raynare's room. Issei sighs quietly as he stares at the large bedroom door down. Alright, here it goes. Issei whispers before shaking the doubt out of his head. Knock knock. After politely knocking on the door, Issei is greeted by nothing but silence. Ooh, did I fuck up already? Issei thought to himself. The silence continued until Krieg. The heavy door slightly opened and Raynare slowly peeked her head out of the opening. Issei. Hi, Issei responded with a small smile and an awkward wave. Later. Issei sat quietly on a swivel chair in the corner of the room as Raynare looked down at him from atop her bed. So the fallen angel was the first to speak up. Is there something you wanted to talk to me about? Yeah. Issei shot up in his seat now that the awkward silence had been broken. Issei's enthusiasm caught Raynare off guard and he decided to calm himself down. Ahem. What I mean is that I do need to talk to you about something. Issei's eyes softened as he stared directly into Raynare's, making her squirm a bit. I'm sorry. What? Raynare said with a raised eyebrow. Sorry for what? Just the way things ended. You know, between us. Issei slightly stumbled over his words, but kept his composure enough so that he wasn't completely mumbling. Why would you apologize? It's my fault it happened. Raynare saddened as she remembered the event. Maybe so, but I didn't need to storm off like I did. I mean, that was pretty uncool. Issei said with a small grin, trying to keep spirits up in the room. It's not like I blame you, I did say some pretty messed up things to you. And in your defense you at least made sure I'd have somewhere to stay that night. Raynare replied in a joking manner. You're right. I guess I really didn't do anything wrong. I guess I'll see you later then. Issei decided to fully commit to the joke with his response. A small chuckle broke out between the two of them as it seemed that all of the awkwardness had left the room. But I really am sorry for what happened. Issei apologized as the room calmed down. The two Raynare smiled back before her expression changed to a more nervous one. So what are we now? Are we still? No. Issei said firmly, not letting anything waive his decision. We're good now, but not as good as we were. For now, we're just friends, if that's okay with you. Raynare looked rather sad for a moment before perking herself back up. Yeah, friends are something I can work with. The fallen angel extends a hand, which is quickly met by Issei, and a firm handshake seals the deal. Friends. Next day. Issei was walking down a crowded street in the Kuo shopping district. The young boy had a spring in his step as he made his way down a city sidewalk. I feel great today. Issei announced in his mind. I feel so relaxed, like I weigh 100 pounds less. Partner, I'm glad you're feeling good, but I have something important I need to tell you. The Welsh dragon responded telepathically. Hey Ddraig, it's been a while, how have you been? Issei happily replied. Can that important thing wait? Ria's called me and Tiamat to the orc, and I'm kinda running late. Partner, this is extremely important, not just to you, the safety of everyone you know and love could be at stake. Ddraig's voice intensified to the point where it was more like a demand than a request. Alright. Issei stopped in the middle of the sidewalk as people passed by him. You have my attention, what's the problem? Issei, recently your power has been growing exponentially. Normally this deserves praise, but in this instance. Hold up. Issei said out loud, cutting Ddraig off. The boy inhaled deeply with his nostrils, taking in all the scents around him with the strength of his dragon nose. That smell. Issei slowly turned around and to find where the familiar aroma was coming. Long blonde hair elegantly danced in the wind. Asia stood a few feet behind the boy, she was dressed in her nun clothes, minus the headpiece. She stood motionless with her head slightly lowered and a sorrowful expression dawning her face. Oh, Asia. Issei said cheerfully. It's good to see you. I'm going over to meet with a friend, you wanna come along? The young nun slowly shook her head in refusal. Issei, there is something important I have to talk about. I want to go somewhere where we can go alone first. Issei stood momentarily in a state of slight confusion, but eventually followed the girl. In a nearby, empty park. Issei and Asia sat together on a small bench, not talking as the two appreciated the quietness of nature and the calmness of the moment. This place is pretty nice. Issei looked up into the blue sky, past a canopy of the trees just overhead. So what is it you wanted to tell me? Yeah, Asia looked down towards her hands. I wanted to tell you goodbye. But Issei quickly turned to the girl, concern flooded his face. What are you talking about? This is the last time we'll ever see each other. Middle promised me she would fix my curse. Then I could go home. Asia's words were almost alien to Issei. He had no clue what the girl was talking about, but Asia stood up from the bench and continued her farewell speech. But I wanted to have the chance to thank you for your kindness and bid you farewell. You've been a great friend, Issei-kun. She turned around with a smile. Asia, what are you talking about? Issei stood up after the girl and locked eyes with her. What curse and how would fix it? What do you mean by go home? Who the heck is Middlet? Hey. A voice announced from behind the two teenagers, getting both of their attention. The two turned to find the blonde-haired fallen angel, with a thin figure, dressed in her Victorian-made outfit and her hair tied in two messy twin tails. Alright, you said goodbye, it's time to go. Who are you? Issei jumped as confusion built up past what his mind could handle. My name is Middlet. The blonde woman smirked as four shining black wings sprouted from her back. And you're done here. The fallen angel quickly snapped her fingers. After hearing the loud snap, Issei's eyes sharpened with intensity. Issei bounded into the air as a large male fallen angel wearing a fedora made a flying tackle where Issei had once been standing. During the split second where Issei was mid-jump above the fallen angel, Issei tightened his body and rocketed downwards, delivering a drop kick to the middle of the man's back. Ah! The fallen angel let out a pained grunt as he was kicked to the dirt by Issei. Issei then brought his scarlet gauntlet down and charged a red energy ball pointed directly at the man's head. So he's a bit more skilled than we thought. That could be a problem. Middlet whispered to herself. Alright. I'm gonna get some answers right now, or the detective Dumbus here is gonna lose his head. Issei announced to his adversary. Issei, stop. Asia yelled out, catching the boy off guard. Don't get any more involved. Just let me go. But Issei was stunned, but he did have time to figure out a new plan. You better listen to the girl. Middlet summoned a long, hot pink, light spear and pointed it directly at Asia's throat. You don't want things to get messy, do you? Issei made an angry face before giving in, complying with the girl's wishes. Issei stepped off the large fallen angel who regrouped with Middlet and Asia. Middlet then wrapped Asia around in her arms and spread her two sets of wings. Goodbye, Issei. Asia called out, trying to keep a cheerful expression as she was lifted up into the air. Middlet summoned a yellow ball of light to the opposite hand as Asia called out one last time. I'll never, ever, forget you. And with those final parting words, Middlet threw the ball of light onto the ground, causing it to explode into massive shining waves of light that blinded Issei temporarily, but when he regained his sight they were gone. Asia, Asia. Issei called out as he looked around desperately for his friend, to no avail. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. Partner, wait. Ddraig warned Issei. You need to listen to me. There is so much at stake. Just take a minute to. No time. Issei spread his reptilian wings and jetted off into the sky. At the orc. Wham! The heavy doors of the Occult Research Club swung open with an epic amount of force. Riaz, Akeno, Raynare, Kiba, Kaneko and Tiamat were all gathered around the table enjoying tea in silence when a panicked Issei, who was no longer in his armor, rushed into the room. Finally, he's here. Riaz said in a sarcastic tone. What happened? Did you get lost on the way here or something? Tiamat. Something's happened to Asia. Do you remember where you dropped her off a few days ago? Issei frantically asked the blue-haired dragon. Who's Asia? Riaz asked, feeling rather ignored. Yeah, an old run-down warehouse, downtown. It smelled like trouble and was crowded with fallen angels. Tiamat answered with an intellectual tone. Yeah, a blonde-haired fallen angel named Middlet was the one who took her. Issei took a thinking pose as he put the facts together. I have no doubt that's where she was taken. Wait. Did you say Middlet? Raynare asked in a voice filled with concern. Yeah, do you know her? Issei replied. Yeah. Raynare took a pose of thought, topped with a grin face as she recalled the information on her former associate. She worked for me when I was operating here. She's ruthless and sadistic, but at the same time very resourceful. She probably plans to remove Asia's sacred gear. Remove her sacred gear? Issei's face filled with horror. But that would kill her. Yeah, I know. Raynare finished. It was my plan originally. I hoped to use Asia's twilight healing as a peace offering to Azazel so that he'd let me back into the Grigori. But knowing Middlet, she'd probably keep it to herself. Then I have no time to lose. Issei said as he made his way to the door. Wait. Raynare spoke up once again. Then suddenly a flash of light covered the dark-haired girl's body. When the light faded, Raynare was clothed in her tiny leather bikini. This is my mess. I should help you clean it up. Issei nodded, but then Riaz stepped up. I'm going to. Fallen angels, using my territory to carry out their own agendas. Unacceptable. I also am interested in meeting this girl who possesses twilight healing. The rest of Ria's peerage stepped up behind her. And I'm not going anywhere without them. Alright, then let's head out soon. You're coming? Issei asked his master. You don't need me. I'll just stay here. See you when you get back. Tiamat said, and Issei answered with a nod. Ria snapped her fingers, and a large magic circle appeared underneath the whole group, and with a huge red flash the group was gone. Good luck. Tiamat said with a sip of tea. Old warehouse. Issei, Raynare, and the orc appeared on an asphalt street a meter away from the warehouse. Whoa. Issei exclaimed as he scanned his body. That was way faster than flying here. I know, right? Ria said with pride. Now I teleported us a block or two away from the main entrance. This place reeks of fallen angels. We have to be careful and sneak our way towards the Issei. When Riaz looked up, she saw Issei charging forward, headstrong and directly for the entrance. Oh great, Riaz deadpanned. Issei cried as he ran straight forward towards the door. Bang. The bullet of light flew directly in front of Issei's feet, stopping him in his tracks. Well, if it isn't Dragon Boy. The familiar voice called up from nearby. Issei turned around to see the crooked priest freed, accompanied by the fedora-wearing fallen angel and a buxom female fallen angel with long navy hair and a violet dress. Sorry Dumbus, but I can't let you interrupt the ceremony or else Middlet won't give me any tonight. I hope you understand. Really, they sent these grunts to try and stop me. I'm a bit insulted. Issei smirked. Alright, have it your way. I'll kick all of your asses. We'll see about that, you prick. The male fallen angel charged forward, light spear in hand. When suddenly a massive amount of crimson energy blindsided the man and knocked him away. Geez, Issei. Ria's hands were covered by twin magic circles as she took a battle stance, followed by the rest of the group, all taking stances of their own. You don't have time to play around with these losers. You'd know that if you bothered to listen to me. We'll take it from here. Thanks guys. Issei smiled before turning to run to the door. Wait a second. A frustrated Freed pointed his gun at the running boy. You ain't going nowhere, shitface. But before Freed could pull his trigger, Kiba in an incredible burst of speed, jumped up and knocked the priest from his perch. Ugh. Fucking pretty boy devil. Freed activated his shining light sword and clashed with the devil knight. Look who it is. The female fallen angel taunted Raynare. The girl who'd rather go play girlfriend than finish the mission. Don't be jealous. Just because I can land a cute decent guy. Well, you're stuck showing off your cleavage to Donasik and his gross friends. Raynare fires back. Really? The other angel smirked. Because if intelligence serves, you get dumped. So what, he got tired of you and decided he'd rather fuck the devil bitch. Not that I blame him. Oh, that's it bitch. You're fucking dead. Raynare summoned her red light spear and her opponent did the same before the two of them rushed at each other. Riaz looked back and forth across the battlefield. This can't be it, can it? Grrr. Freed used his sword to push Kiba away. Not even close, slut. Freed quickly but 2 fingers in his mouth and a high-pitched whistle shot back out. Suddenly 3 whole legions of fallen angels erupted from the surrounding areas. Haria sighed. I just had to go and open my mouth, didn't I? Inside of the warehouse. In a room crowded with hooded figures, a large altar stood above the ground. On it stood Middlet as she finished strapping Asia to a large green cross that seemed to be radiating some kind of dark magic. Well, are you ready for Asia? Your big moment is almost at hand. The blonde fallen angel seemed to be giddy as she prepared the machine that would rip the sacred gear from Asia's body and kill her. I'm not sure. Asia's voice began to waver and shake as fear and uncertainty flooded her mind. But your curse. You do want to be normal, don't you, have friends? Middlet attempted to persuade the girl. She figured a compliant victim would be much easier to deal with than one that resisted. I do have friends. Issei is my friend. I don't want to leave here. Asia looked around as more and more fear began to sink into the girl's mind. Something is wrong, I don't like this. Help. Help. Smack. Millet's hand flew across Asia's face, leaving a painful red mark. Shut your fucking face, bitch. Miller's calm exterior had faded and her true ruthless personality was finally showing itself. I've come too far for you to start fucking shit up for me now. If I have let these men play around with you until you break, I swear to God I'll do it. If you want to at least keep your virginity in death, then you're gonna shut the fuck up or else I'll lie. A plume of crimson flames erupted from below Middlet's feet. She turned her head so that she was looking down a corridor at the other side of the room. Through the darkness a man's silhouette could be made out, as well as 2 small green lights for eyes. You won't lay a hand on her. The familiar voice filled the room. Issei. Asia was suddenly filled with joy as her hero had arrived. Or else, I swear. You won't leave this place alive. Issei's voice intensified as his face escaped the darkness that had covered him previously. Heh. The fallen angel smirked. I'd like to see you try. Smack. Issei glares at the woman's confident smirk. That seals it. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. Issei shot forward towards the altar as fast as he could. Rather than preparing to fight, Middlet simply smiled, a disturbed smile. Time seemed to slow as it flew towards conflict. Unknown to him, a small red circle began to form beneath Issei's body. Suddenly thin strands of magic energy began to rise from the circle. These strands reached up towards Issei and entwined his body in the strange magic. This wasn't a battle cry, but rather screams of pain. Issei was forced out of the air and back to earth. Vicious, red, magical enrage began to surge across Issei's body, causing Issei to writhe in intense pain. An evil laugh erupted from the blonde angel. Well, you kinda walked right into that one, didn't you? The face of pure evil delight wouldn't leave Middlet's face. Poor Dot, is this the first time you've experienced dragon slaying magic? You may have thought your draconic transformation made you stronger in every way, but that magic has to hurt way more than if you had just remained human. How the hell did she know I wasn't? Another surge of the dragon slaying magic interrupted mid-thought by the intense pain. Funny thing about that special dragon slaying rune I picked up. As well as weakening you, the more of your draconic powers that you use, the more damage it'll do to you. So come if you dare. Either your fighting spirit breaks, or your body will. Middlet stood confidently at the head of the altar, but this expression would soon change. Much to Middlet's dismay, Issei slowly rose back to his feet. Mere seconds after being struck by her trump card Dragon Slayer rune. Jet. Ddraig's voice filled the room. The back spikes on Issei's back opened, and the jets began to charge with green energy. Issei blasted forward, faster than Middlet could make out. Suddenly Issei was on the altar with the two of them. Then with a powerful strike of Issei's tail, Middlet was sent flying into a wall on the other side of the room. Another wave of Dragon Slayer magic overtook Issei, filling him with pain. Eventually the spell ceased its onslaught, and Issei was released from the overpowering agony. Issei concern filled Asia's voice, but there was no time for that. Issei quickly ripped the restraints off of Asia, freeing her from Unholy Cross. Are you alright, Issei? You gotta get out of here now. Issei wrapped the girl up in his arms and flew towards the door. Raynare is waiting outside, go find her, but keep yourself safe. I'll deal with things here. Raynare-sama. Asia sat down in front of the exit but was hesitant to leave. But what about you? You're injured. Don't worry about me, get yourself out of here now. Issei then turns around and flies back towards the conflict, leaving Asia to escape. As Issei entered the main room, almost 100 magic circles were pointed at him. Oh shit. POW. Hundreds of beams of magic light made contact with the weakened Issei, knocking him into a wall. Not letting Issei have any time to recover, Middlet came charging from nowhere, light spear in hand. Once she got close enough, she hurled the deadly spear at Issei, causing an explosion that knocked Issei into a back room. Oof. Ugh. Issei went tumbling onto the floor and seemed to find rest until the rune activated once again. You idiot, do you know how much work it took to set up that spell, and you fucking ruined it. Middlet pupil struck due to her own rage and insanity as she struck Issei with a second spear, causing another small explosion. Yet I ruined your spell, and now Asia's gone, so just give up. Issei taunted from his weakened state on the floor. Oh, no, 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 dragon boy. The still crazy-eyed Middlet said while standing above Issei. Once you're dead, I'll just recapture that bitch and do it again. Middlet readied a third spear, but Issei wasn't gonna take this lying down. Another powerful swing of Issei's tail collides with Middlet's legs and knocks her to the ground. And using this opportunity, Issei delivers a vicious kick to the blonde girl's stomach and knocks her back into the main room. Way to go, Issei-kun. Your fighting spirit hasn't died yet, but I guess I should have figured that out by now. Middlet dusted herself off and basically shook off the last attack. But after the horrible tragedy that you experienced as a child, it makes sense that you wouldn't give up that easily. What? Issei shouted with a growl. What the hell did you say? You don't know anything about me. Issei lunged forward at the girl, but in his weakened state, he was much slower than normal. Middlet ducked out of the way before delivering a two-legged kick to Issei's stomach. Oh, but I do Haidu-kun. Middlet as she dodged another attack, then the dragon slaying spell took its toll once again, stopping him momentarily. I know that you sleep in the nude. I know that you wear an apron that says badass on it like a total dork. Issei turned around and fired two dragon shots at the blonde fallen angel, which she dodged easily. The dragon slaying magic dealt it punishment once again. I know that you don't have any friends. I know that you are horribly afraid of intimacy. And I know that you focus all of your time on training to fight strong opponents because it's the only thing that helps you forget the fact that you lost your parents due to your own weaknesses. Middlet said as she stood over the broken Issei before delivering a quick kick that knocked the boy across the room. Ack. Ack. Issei spit up some of the blood from his shredded organs as he tried to regain his feet. How? Issei said quietly, causing Middlet's ears to perk up. How the hell could you know all that? Issei said with a furious growl. Haha. A terrible chuckle flew from the fallen angel's mouth. Just think about it, I'm sure you'll come to the correct conclusion. Issei sat in his own pain and blood as he thought about what his enemy had told him. Suddenly inside Issei's helmet, his green eyes widened with shock and horror. No way, it can't be SH, she wouldn't. Bingo. Middlet said while making a goofy face. You really are a smart cookie. She told me about those two. Our pretty little dark-haired angel had a blast playing spy. She said it was hilarious how gullible you were and how fun it was in playing the good girl. Unfortunately, even she couldn't get over just how disgustingly shut off you were from other people, so she snapped and yelled at me. Those poor girls, it just proves how unlovable you are. At least that's what she said. No way, Raynare, she's not like that. She wouldn't betray me like that. Issei said with determination as he slowly climbed back to his feet. Hey man, believe what you want. You're dead anyway. Middlet snapped her fingers. Alright, light 'em up boys. As she said that, the hooded wizards re-emerge, their magic circles readied. Suddenly, hundreds of energy blasts struck Issei's body. As Issei was pelted with magic blasts, his mind was racing too quickly to feel the pain. No, she wouldn't. There's no way that she would betray me like that. It's not possible. No way. I don't believe it. No 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 no. Something snapped in Issei's head. The pain, the confusion, the sadness, the desperation, all took over his head. There was a swirl of emotions, but the one that seemed to shine through the most and burn away all the rest was rage. As Issei screamed, his aura began to flare and circle him, causing all the energy blasts to bounce off of Issei's body. Issei's roars filled the room, and the gems that donned Issei's armor began to glow a bright green, as did his eyes. The glow increased to the point where Issei's traditionally red aura was now a bright, vibrant green. Boost. 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 Issei's power began to rise exponentially. Middlet was nearly speechless at this development. How? That's impossible. The rune, he shouldn't be able to get this strong. That's when Middlet's rune reappeared on the ground and began to crack. No fear struck the fallen angel's heart as her ace in the hole shattered before her very eyes. The gems on Issei's armor and his eyes began to flare with green energy as Issei aura began to grow in size until it was a massive flame-like plume of emerald power that reached the very ceiling of the warehouse. The intensity of having so much power concentrated at one place caused the building to shake and the warehouse windows all shattered. Middlet was virtually paralyzed by the intense pressure that was building up in the room. What the Middlet placed her hand under her nose, and when she removed her hand it was covered in blood. Outside the warehouse, Riaz, the orc, Raynare, and all of enemy fallen angels were forced to drop to their knees due to the pressure of Issei's energy. Riaz was able to turn her head just enough to see the green light show through the broken windows of the warehouse. I say. What the hell is happening? At the orc, Tiamat was shaking in her boots as she stared out through one of the clubhouse's large windows. Oh god, two blue reptilian wings bursted from Tiamat's back as she took flight and busted through the large glass window. In a dark office-like room, at an unknown location, Azazel sat at a large business desk opposite of a red-haired man. This was a great meeting. It's always a pleasure to have you here in Kuo, but what would your younger sister say if she knew you visited her territory without telling her? Hahaha. Red-haired man let out a soft, charming laugh. Well, you know what they say. What she doesn't know won't hurt. The man's bright expression quickly stiffened as he and Azazel turned their heads in the same direction. Raynare and the orc were finally able to return to their feet as the ungodly pressure seemed to die down at last. What the hell was that? Raynare said as she tried to blink the shock and confusion out of her face. Raynare-sama. Asia called out as she stumbled forward away from the warehouse entrance. The young girl was still shaken by the tremendous force that had just recently filled the area. Her legs wobbled as she walked. Oh, Asia. You made it out okay. Hurry, get over here. There are enemies everywhere. Raynare looked around to find that Fried and all of the fallen angels had fled the scene. Back. Rhea spit up a mouthful of saliva as she climbed back to her feet. Those cowards fled the scene as soon as the ground began to shake. As the rest of her period stood back up, Rhea took a second to think about what she had said. Actually, I don't really blame them. What was that? I can still feel that incredible aura. It's weird, but it actually felt like Issei, Raynare pointed out as she moved Asia away from the building. A violent beast-like roar exploded from warehouse, causing the old building to shake again. I hate to disagree with you, Raynare, but that didn't really sound like Issei's normally strong commanding voice was now trembling. Out of nowhere, a huge crash quickly grabbed the attention of everyone present. They turned to see one of the warehouse walls collapse and a small, smoking projectile flew from the rubble. As the smoke faded, it revealed that the flying ball was actually Middlet. The blonde fallen angel slammed into the earth and skipped across the ground before finally coming to rest. Middlet had suffered multiple visual injuries. Scrapes and bruises riddled her body, and half of one of her forewings had been burned off. Hack. 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 Blood came flying from the broken girl's mouth. Monster, Middlet mumbled. Monster? Raynare began to make her way over to question her fellow fallen angel, but was stopped dead in her tracks as she felt a massive rise in power coming from nearby. Suddenly a massive wave of red energy blasted forward. The barreling laser blast destroyed the ground, kicking up massive amounts of dust before colliding with Middlet. The massive energy blast completely consumed the blonde girl, and within seconds her body was completely vaporized. After witnessing the death of the blonde angel, Raynare and the orc all turned their heads in fear in order to discover the origin of the massive energy wave. The group stood still, unable to move, as they stared into the burning red hole created by Middlet's crash. After being concealed by a plume of flame, a glowing red Issei emerged from the fire. His body was shrouded in thick veil of red energy that radiates across his crimson armor. A wave of intensity poured over the area, causing everyone to shudder. Issei, calm down. We have Asia, Middlet is dead, you need to calm down. Raynare begged as she shielded her face from the violent intensity. Issei remained silent as he stared down the whole group. It was Akeno who would speak up next. Raynare, you need to be careful. I don't know why, but he stinks of death. He reeks of it. Akeno was in utter shock as she stared down the hulking dragon. In Issei's eyes, the world was shrouded in red and everything was blurred. He couldn't make out any individuals, but the large aura radiating from Ria's was enough to get Issei's attention. The powerful dragon rocketed forward at race and basically turned into a scarlet meteor. The poor girl stood silently as she stared death in the face, her face began to tremble. Issei. I'm slowed down as Issei closed in on as he readied his attack. Issei prepared a devastating punch, with enough power to obliterate the small girl, until suddenly. Blam. A huge ray of blue energy fired into Issei's body and blew his body back. It's not Issei. Tiamat came in behind the group, flying in on two shining blue wings. Blue smoke was emanating from her sapphire staff as it had just recently fired. At least not anymore. You guys probably want to get behind me. Things are about to get intense. You really did it this time, Dumbus. Tiamat said in a sad voice as Issei scrambled to his feet. Damn, I really liked you. You were nice, hardworking, not to mention a great chef, and you had so much potential. But I suppose it was inevitable. He took you away, just like anyone else who used that power. Power began to surge around Tiamat, and her long blue hair began to dance. I'll never forgive you for what you've done. The blue magic circle appeared beneath Tiamat's feet, and more power filled the air, kicking up a strong wind. This one's for Issei. She took the deep blue staff in both of her hands. The gem at the top of the staff began to glow a bright teal light. Perfect karma, raging chaos. Breaking balance. The woman's body was enveloped in a bright blue light. The light exploded off of Tiamat, like a butterfly's cocoon, a beautiful new transformation was revealed. A shining blue armor donned her body, a pattern of teal gems formed on various places along her body. The armor was much more form-fitting as opposed to Issei's, and her helmet was much less vicious looking, and more feminine, allowing her long blue hair to flow out the back. Increases weird fake balance breaker thing from the end of Born, except the armor covers her whole body. Issei didn't respond vocally or emotionally at this new revelation, rather he just waited for the female dragon to finish. Energy surged through the Tiamat staff before a razor-sharp blade composed of pure energy formed on the tip, making it a spear. Alright you monster. Let's go. Issei's energy veil seemed to flash before it completely shifted to Issei's fists. Two jagged energy blades erupted out of Issei's knuckles, one on each fist. Issei took a martial arts stance before flaring a flame-like aura. Issei was the first to attack. Lunging forward at Tiamat, both arms raised. Once in striking range, Issei dropped both arms down like a hammer. Tiamat had to devote the whole of her spear to block the attack. Issei used this opening as a chance to swing his tail around and trip the girl, then with a swift shift of his body, Issei delivered a powerful swipe kick to Tiamat's face, knocking her away. Issei followed after her as his fist blades were dispelled. Jet. With his increased speed, Issei passed Tiamat midair. The red dragon positioned himself in front of Tiamat so that when she arrived he had a powerful upwards kick ready. But the tremendous, sorrowful kick, Issei once again knocked Tiamat away, but this time she was headed upwards. Jet. Faster than the eye could detect, Issei met Tiamat midair and quickly punched her torso. Hundreds of punches would follow that one in the coming seconds. Issei's strikes were hitting so fast that gravity wasn't able to send the girl downwards, leaving her open to more punches. Issei's attacks prioritized speed over power, but the number of blows was effective enough. As blow after blow made contact with Tiamat's armor, the Dragon King seemed helpless as she was forced to take the onslaught. On the contrary, Tiamat's grip on her spear strengthened. Eventually she was able to swing the mighty weapon that the contact knocked Issei away like a baseball. Tiamat then gripped the spear with both hands, and it began to glow. Perfect counter, ultimate karma. A blue magic circle appeared on Issei's body, where he had been struck by the swing of the spear. Suddenly blue lightning erupted from the circle, and Issei was enveloped in intense pain. Raynare. Ultimate karma, Tiamat said with a deep breath. A move that deals back all damage inflicted on the user, back at the opponent. Inside to Tiamat's helmet, the blue-haired girl smirked. So, I dare you. Give me everything you've got. I just hope you can take it. Issei did a spin midair to keep from crashing and spread his scarlet dragon wings. Tiamat did the same. The two dragons flashed red and blue auras that seemed to match in intensity. Cloaked in their respective colors, the two charged at each other and collided with a huge aura clash. As twin balls of red and blue danced across the night sky, Raynare and the orc were left as no more than spectators. What the hell is going on? Rhea stared blankly up into the sky, her blue eyes filled with intrigue but also fear. I have no idea, those eyes, Issei's eyes. They're so vicious, so hateful, nothing but rage. I don't recognize them. Raynare shook as she watched her ex viciously strike the Dragon King. Their power is too intense. Kiba said as he firmly held onto his sword, as if to protect himself from a threat that was not there. I say we heed Tiamat-sama's warning and get out of here. And no. Rhea said, trying to retain some form of authority. And not until I figure out just what happened to Issei. A sheepish voice emerged from behind. Asia stepped out from behind Raynare and took on the crowd's attention. I think I have an idea. Tiamat-sama once said that Issei-sama's anger was terribly dangerous. She said that in a fit of rage, Issei has the potential to unleash the dragon inside of him. Asia's face was morbidly serious as she recalled Tiamat's words. Tiamat-sama said that if that ever happened, then the consequences would be disastrous. She said that if the dragon was freed, the death toll would be ungodly. The blonde girl's typically calm expression could now frighten small children. That helped settle it, I think. Kiba was now shaky as well. I really don't think dying here is a good idea. No, please wait. Asia dropped to her knees in a begging stance. I know it seems bad, but we can't leave him. Issei is a friend, he'd never hurt any of us. I wonder what Middlet would have to say about that. Akeno spoke up. Issei-kun was my friend, but I don't know how much of him is left in that thing. Believe it or not, but we've seen it already. That thing is a killer. Enough. Rhea's raised a powerful voice, silencing the whole group. Her gaze still fixated on the fight above. Asia is right. Issei is our friend, we can't abandon faith in him just yet. Besides, if he truly is a monster as Akeno says, then there is even more reason to remain. If Tiamat is to fail, then we must stay here. The last line of defense, we must protect the innocent people of my territory. That's our job. Hiya. Tiamat waved her glowing blue spear, forming a blue energy trail. Arrows of blue light fired from this trail and struck Issei's body at various points, knocking him around like a rag doll and leaving him vulnerable. Tiamat used this opportunity to its fullest. With a tremendous burst of speed, Tiamat disappeared, then reappeared above Issei, spear in attacking position. Then, using as much force as she could muster, she thrusted the spear forward directly at Issei's torso. Issei quickly shifted to the side and caught the large weapon under his arm, between his elbow and his torso. The red dragon then lifted the opposite arm and put it in a position to break the spear. No, you don't. Tiamat quickly put up an arm and charged a blue magic circle between her fingers. Suddenly the circle lit up brightly, and in a small explosion of magic power, Issei was blasted away. Thud. Issei's heavy armored body made contact with the ground after falling to many stories from the sky. Tiamat followed after him. Depending quickly as she readied her spear for a finishing stab. She let out a battle cry as she slammed down the weapon aimed directly for Issei's face. The lucky dragon had just barely dodged by quickly moving his head to the side. Yah. 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 Tiamat quickly began thrusting her spear side to side, just barely missing Issei's sliding head with her vicious blows. As she was distracted by trying to end the fight quickly, the central red gem on Issei's armor began gathering red energy. Blam. The built-up energy exploded into a massive wave of energy that knocked the Dragon King up into the air. Tiamat's screams were stopped as Issei caught her head in his hand, midair. The ruthless red dragon then twisted his arm and hurled his opponent back down into the pavement. Issei flew at his blood-red aura as he gathered energy. Then spheres of energy began to form in each of Issei's palms as Tiamat laid damaged on the ground. Blam. A ball of red energy came flying down from the heavens and collided with the blue dragon. Smoke and dust flew up into the air, covering the scene in a thick cloud. But when the dust had settled, it revealed that Tiamat had summoned a magic circle that blocked the blow and reduced damage. Almost like a machine gun, hundreds of blasts began to rain down on Tiamat. Each shot slammed against Tiamat's shield and rattled her slightly. The blasts were numerous, but not particularly strong. Tiamat figured Issei would succumb to exhaustion before her shield would fail. Issei knew this as well, so the blast stopped momentarily. When Tiamat looked up to assess the situation, she saw that Issei had summoned 2 large energy balls, one to each hand. Issei then brought his arms together and the 2 balls merged into one. The single energy blast increased in size until it was larger than Issei's body. The massive energy blast was then fired forward and transformed into a large continuous energy wave instead of the previous energy ball form. The massive energy beam relentlessly bared down on Tiamat's shield, cracking and fracturing the magic barrier. Tiamat struggled with the massive amounts of power bearing down on her. Tiamat shifted a massive amount of power into her shield. The magic circle began to glow a bright blue as it morphed into a sphere of pure energy. The blue sphere grew in size as Issei's attack cascaded over it. The energy sphere grew to a 4-meter diameter before Tiamat finally released the attack. The blue energy blast pushed back on Issei's attack. Issei's attack began to fade as his stamina weakened. The gigantic sphere seemed to consume Issei's attack as it encroached on him. Issei seemed to stand helplessly as he was enveloped by the large blast. A large blue explosion filled the sky. A smoldering Issei fell from the sky and created a small crater. Issei's violent aura had faded and the bright red glow had faded from the gems on his armor. Sorry it had to end this way, Issei. Tiamat twirled her spear around as she walked up to the grounded Issei. It has to be this way, for the sake of everything else. I will respect God's wish. That monster must never live again. Tiamat raised her spear up into the air as she prepared the final blow, but suddenly a red claw emerged from the crater and grabbed her by the ankle. Issei stood up and pulled Tiamat towards him. Then with his second fist he delivered a strong punch to her abdomen, knocking the woman away into nearby brush. Issei let out a vicious battle cry as the lights on his armor returned. Violent energy filled the air, causing the orc to drop to their knees under the intense pressure. A perfectly circular crater began to form under Issei's feet as more and more of the ground was destroyed by Issei's power increase. Tiamat quickly shot out of the bushes and back onto the battlefield. She got an eyeful of the scene at hand before realizing she had to take action. As the boosts continued and Issei's power intensified, Tiamat waved her spear, creating a huge blue magic circle beneath his feet. Breako Tenitra. Thousands of bolts of lightning fell from the sky, directly on top of Issei, causing a massive explosion. Tiamat's stance relaxed, smoke billowed into the sky. She took a deep breath before letting out a sad sigh. Hey it's over. The teal eyes of Tiamat's armor suddenly widened. As the smoke faded from the arena, a red dome of energy came into view. Oh no, Tiamat said wide-eyed. The red dome began to crack and splinter, before finally exploding and releasing Issei, along with a massive amount of energy. Issei levitated above the crater he created, his body radiating a massive aura, blood red in color. This is his full power. Incredible. Tiamat couldn't believe her eyes. The massive energy began to slowly calm and condensed itself around Issei. The Welsh dragon of domination. Ddraig in a blink of an eye. Issei appeared in front of Tiamat and planted a powerful fist in her gut. Gah. Tiamat stumbled backwards, grasping her stomach in pain. Tiamat regained her composure and seemed to shake away the pain. Her spear returned to her hand and she took a battle pose. Tiamat lunged forward and took a powerful swing of her staff. She struck Issei across the face. Do more. One to Issei's side, another dead center in his stomach. More and more strikes made contact with Issei, who seemed to simply stand and take it. Blow after blow, one swing hit Issei's knees and brought it down. Tiamat jumped up and readied an overhead swing on her descent. But in a feat of great speed and precision, Issei caught the spear on its descent. Issei ripped the spear from Tiamat's grip, then with the opposite hand punched the Dragon King dead in the face, sending her flying backwards. Tiamat grunted as she fell to the floor. Issei slowly made his way towards Tiamat, blue spear in hand. Issei then grasped the weapon with both hands, and with a quick bend of his arms, the magic weapon broke in half, and with it Tiamat's blue armor vanished, leaving the girl completely naked. Oh crap. Tiamat looked down at her small human hands, before quickly closing them and summoning more magic power. I guess that leaves me no choice. I have to take my true form and release my true power in order to. Crack. In a split second Issei had closed the distance between the two and dropped his reptilian foot down onto Tiamat's arm and completely shattered the bone. Aya. Tiamat screamed violently. To silence her, Issei summoned an energy blade and held it mere centimeters from her float. Seeing no other option and wanting to protect her friends, Tiamat surrendered. Alright. You win, but please. After hearing you win, Issei suddenly pulled away his energy blade and stepped away from the broken girl. Tiamat blinked twice at this development. The glowing red Issei simply stood motionless, as if deep in thought. Issei. Issei stood silently in the middle of the warehouse parking lot. He didn't move as conflict stirred in his head. A flash of green returned to his eyes for a split second, but suddenly a massive amount of black and crimson energy collided with Issei's body and knocked him away. Nice shot. A voice came from where the energy blast had been fired. Issei turned her head to see a smiling Azazel, standing next to a scarlet-haired man who made a stoic face as powerful energy danced in his palm. Azazel then spread all 12 of his black wings and summoned a giant golden spear to his hand. Looks like fun, kids. Mind if the big boys play a bit? Nice shot. A voice came from where the energy blast had been fired. Issei turned her head to see a smiling Azazel, standing next to a scarlet-haired man who made a stoic face as powerful energy danced in his palm. Azazel then spread all 12 of his black wings and summoned a giant golden spear to his hand. Looks like fun, kids. Mind if the big boys play a bit? Tiamat cocked her head to look over at the fallen angel, her face covered in shock and confusion. Why you idiot? The Dragon King shouted, causing Azazel to stumble back a bit. He was trying to focus, he almost had control. You just ruined everything. Tears formed in her eyes as exhaustion and frustration finally began to set in. No. What we did was save your life. Azazel retorted. His power has far exceeded the control of someone so young. The only way to save him is to render him unconscious via combat and hope that whatever is going on with his aura subsides. The fallen angel governor said sternly. Also Tiamat-sama. Ahem. You should probably put some clothes on. Tiamat looked downwards to discover that she was in fact still naked after Issei had destroyed her staff. The Dragon King didn't seem fazed by this development even in the presence of two gentlemen. Rather, she simply stood to her feet. Her broken arm dangled in a way that was rather uncomfortable to look at. In a bright flash of light, her scaly blue dress appeared and covered her from prying eyes. As this was going on, the red-haired man stood stoically as he focused on the crater bushes he had just knocked Issei into. Even though this man remained silent, one of the stunned observers recognized him. Ani-sama. Ria stepped out of the crowd and called out to the man. What are you doing here and why are you with this fallen angel? Rias. The man in question waved his hand in his sister's direction. It's far too dangerous here. You will leave now? He demanded. But Rias attempted to retort but was immediately silenced by a serious glare from her brother. Tiamat, can you please guide the children out? We can take it from here. Azazel said with a confident smile. Tiamat met Azazel with a vicious stare, testing his resolve. He passed and Tiamat quickly flew over to meet up with Rias and the others. It's a shame that I'm going to miss out on seeing the mighty Sirzechs Lucifer in action. Tiamat said before turning to the group of children. Asia. She called out, getting the blonde nun to flinch. Once we're out of range, I'm going to need you to heal my arm. Asia replied with a sheepish nod. Before departing, Tiamat turned to look at the two men one last time. Remember. My Issei is still in there, I saw it, and if you kill him. The dragon's eyes began to shine, and her voice intensified. You'll have to deal with me. Azazel gave a firm nod as Sirzechs scanned the horizon with his eyes. Suddenly the devil's expression lit up. Azazel. Behind you. Azazel attempted to turn around but was too late. A shining crimson clothesline made contact with his neck. Ack. His voice was caught in his voice as he was knocked to the ground. Azazel quickly blinked the shock out of his eye. When alas his vision was cleared, he looks up to see Issei charging a red energy blast in one of his hands. The silent dragon showed no emotion through his armored face. He did, however, react to a rise in energy nearby. In an incredible burst of speed Issei vanished as a massive amount of crimson devil magic blasted through where he had once stood. He's fast. The grounded Azazel rather redundantly commented. Issei then reappeared behind Sirzechs and fired his charged dragon shot. Sirzechs simply took the blast to his back without so much as a flinch. But he doesn't really pack much of a punch. With that a large magic circle appeared beneath Issei's feet and exploded with magic power, knocking the dragon away. Azazel and Sirzechs quickly regroup and form a back-to-back formation, knowing that the incredibly fast Issei could attack at any moment. He decided to sacrifice power for speed in order to combat two opponents. Sirzechs informed his partner. Normally that would be a pretty sound strategy. Being able to quickly dodge attacks then counter can be especially helpful when fighting two opponents, but because of the differences in power his attacks won't be able to hurt us enough for his speed to matter. Azazel said as he surveyed the area. His eyes quickly lit up. Above us. The two men looked up to see the glowing red dragon levitating above them. In a split second the duo jumped away from each other as Issei came crashing down between them like a scarlet meteor. "I got this," Azazel said as he summoned a pitchfork-esque light spear to his hand. Quickly he hurled it at the grounded Issei, who appeared to be in recoil. Suddenly Issei once again vanished with an afterimage, and the golden spear began hurtling towards Sirzechs. The Devil King quickly ducked under the incoming projectile before shooting Azazel an angry glare. "Hey. Those spears don't tickle devils, so watch your aim." "It's not my foul." Azazel tried to speak until a crimson knee planted itself in the back of his head. The large fallen angel was sent flying into Sirzechs, and the two of them fell to the ground. As the men slowly recovered from the collision, they were met by the cold red eyes of the Red Dragon Emperor. Issei then pointed two red energy blasts at the two, causing them to exchange worried looks with each other. "OMMMM." A large red explosion filled the battlefield, sending Sirzechs and Azazel both flying. As the two slowly returned to their feet, another red energy ball quickly flew by their heads, barely missing Azazel's. The men quickly turned their heads as a massive valley of energy blasts began flying towards them. Azazel and Sirzechs quickly summoned magic circles in defense, a gold and red one respectively. The energy blast collided with the shields at multiple shots per second, causing the two men to lose a bit of ground. "He's getting stronger," Azazel called out over the sound of energy fire. "I wonder if he heard," Sirzechs replied, half joking. "The power of the Red Dragon Emperor. His strength increases every 10 seconds, giving him the potential to surpass even God," Sirzechs said as he shifted his attention back onto the rapidly firing Issei. The Devil King had a look of near awe and admiration as stared down his opponent. "Yeah, what's your point?" Azazel said, a bit confused. "My point is, we need to stop him before he gets any stronger." With that, Sirzechs took a step forward, his magic shield pushing the back against the volley of energy blasts. Step by step the red-haired devil made his way closer to the Red Dragon. Once he was mere feet away from Issei, Sirzechs dropped his right hand and a smaller magic circle appeared in front of it. Issei switched his attack to a more powerful and concentrated laser blast, hoping to knock the devil away, but it was too late. Sirzechs was directly in front of Issei when he threw his shield up and knocked Issei's hands away, leaving him open. The magic circle over his lone hand quickly enveloped the arm and caused Sirzechs' fist to glow with magic. With a violent strike, Sirzechs buried his fist into Issei's armored abdomen, cracking the crimson armor. Issei staggered backwards, hunched over in a deep pain. The armor began to shake on Issei's body as more and more cracks began to form across it. As Issei struggled with the intense pain, he began to waver. Flashing from red to green as Issei's monstrous power had finally reached the end of its effectiveness. The red glow alas faded from Issei's eyes, leaving them a dark dull green. The same was the case for each of Issei's many glowing gems, all were now dull and powerless. The once mighty armor was now no more than a crumbling pile of metal. With a bright flash of light, Issei was finally released from his armor. Issei's body fell to a knee, his body beaten and streams of blood cascaded down from his forehead. "Nice move," Azazel said as he flew over to meet Sirzechs. The Devil King took a second to admire his fist before turning to face the fallen angel. "I think that one's a keeper." The two then looked over at Issei who was shaking on the floor. "Issei?" Azazel asked as he looked down at his former pupil. The boy appeared to mumble something under his breath. "No no 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 no." Issei's eyes appeared dilated as he rocked back and forth in his own sorrow. "Issei, are you alright?" Azazel's eyes filled with concern. He slowly reached out his hand to comfort the boy, but was stopped loudly. "No." Issei's voice echoed in a demanding tone as he knocked the friendly hand away. Issei looked up at his former teacher with eyes of hate, sorrow, and shock. He then blinked his eyes at the familiar face as his sanity seemed to return briefly. "Azazel-sensei. What are you doing here?" "Never mind that. Issei, you're in shock, you need to calm down." Azazel placed both hands on the boy's shoulders. "You need to tell me what happened." "Okay." Issei turned his head so that he was no longer making eye contact with the fallen angel. His eyes were now focused on the burning warehouse. "They're dead." "Dead?" Azazel let go of the boy's shoulders and tried to get Issei to look at him. "Who's dead? What happened?" "Issei. They're dead. All of them." A small grin formed on Issei's face, causing Sirzechs to raise an eyebrow. "They begged me to stop, but I didn't, I couldn't." One after another. It was so easy, there was nothing any of them could do. Some of them cried. "No, please, stop." "I didn't listen." Issei looked down at his hands, which were violently shaking. Issei then shifted his head and looked Azazel dead in his eyes. "Some of them were yours." "What are you talking about?" Azazel was serious. He was tired of the cryptid logic and wanted answers. "The rough fallen angel." Sirzechs spoke up, gathering the attention of the other two. "Her, and all of her followers. He killed them all." Sirzechs said, pointing towards the burning building. And by the sounds of it he was pretty violent about it too. Those words caused Issei to lower his head in shame. Oh, that's it. Azazel said in an upbeat voice that did not match the somber mood of the evening. Issei, those were bad people, they deserved it if anything. Think about it, you saved Asia. The only really bad thing you did was break Tiamat's arm, but that can be fixed. In a way you were a hero tonight. I don't think that's how Issei feels. Sirzechs pointed out as Issei sat silently on his knees. His face is a mixture of depression and pure terror. I guess you're right. Azazel said with a shrug. Then an idea popped into the fallen angel's eyes. Issei, do you know what you need? Issei didn't answer. A shower, a good meal, and a long night's sleep. That'll get you feeling good as new. Unfortunately that good night's sleep will have to wait. I wanna know everything about that incredible power-up. Let's go back to Ria's clubhouse, I'm sure everyone wants to see you. Azazel places his hand on the boy's shoulder, but it's quickly shrugged off. Issei turns around, his eyes full of fear. Go back. I can't go back, I can't go and face them. Azazel tried to retort with a but Issei wasn't done. I hurt Tiamat. I was probably terrified of Asia. There's no way I can face them after what I've done. Azazel tried to approach the distraught boy, but as he got closer Issei got off and ran in the opposite direction. Issei, wait. Azazel called out before sprouting his black wings as he prepared to follow after Issei. He was stopped by Sirzechs who grabbed hold of one of his large black wings. What are you doing? Sirzechs then pulled Azazel back to the ground. I'll go after him. You go back to Ria's club and see if you can find anything out from Tiamat. There's something I want to talk to him about. Azazel's expression stiffened, but Sirzechs wouldn't change his mind, so the fallen angel ended up relenting. Fine, good luck. Orc. Asia, Tiamat, Raynare, and Riaz and her peerage sat in silent anticipation as they waited for any news about Issei's condition. Tiamat's arm appears to have been healed, and Asia had changed clothes and was now wearing Kuo girl's uniform, being the only thing that was her size nearby. Knock. Knock. Two powerful crashes could be heard from the front door, and the silence was broken. Everyone in attendance jumped up to greet the guest, not knowing just who it was. Issei. Riaz said with a bit of excitement as she opened her door, but her upbeat expression was quickly gone as she discovered who it was. Oh, it's you. Azazel awkwardly walked through the door as the crowd returned to their seats in the main room. All except for Tiamat. Where's my Issei? The Dragon King shot a death glare at Azazel, causing him to sweat a bit. Calm down, calm down. Issei's alive. Azazel's words didn't do much to comfort the angry dragon. Okay, he had a bit of a freak out, but that's understandable. Sirzechs went after him, and he's good with stuff like that, so everything is gonna be fine. HMPH. Fine, you live for now. Tiamat relaxed slightly. But there is one thing that I need to ask you about. Azazel asked slightly beggingly. Tiamat took a seat on the couch, but kept eye contact to let Issei know she was listening. Okay, what I want to know is what exactly that form Issei took was. Tiamat shot another glare at the way Azazel phrased that question, and the fallen angel quickly corrected himself. Please. Tiamat sighed, but eventually relented. You should know, Governor General, this is your doing. Azazel raised an eyebrow at this comment. You made Issei's human body into that of a dragon, making him the perfect vessel for the violent spirit of the dragon of domination. Perfect vessel? What does that mean? Isn't sealed in the sacred gear? Azazel asked. Yes, and no. Tiamat explained. Ddraig's body was torn apart and his soul was sealed in the boosted gear. Ddraig's strong spirit is what powers the boosted gear and gives its wielder the aura of a dragon. Ddraig's mind acts as a guide for the wielder and provides wisdom and guidance. Essentially, Ddraig is still very much present even after being sealed, as you put it. Okay. Azazel was very much engaged in this conversation, even though he had yet to receive the answers he desired. But that still doesn't explain the perfect vessel thing. Tell me, fallen angel. How many Long Inus users have you known in your many years of life? Tiamat asked. I've known my share. Azazel crossed his arms as he kept eye contact with Tiamat. Tiamat continued, then I assume you're familiar with the transformation known as Juggernaut Drive. Azazel nodded at this. For the boosted gear's Juggernaut Drive, the user takes on a power that Ddraig once possessed while living, and because of this their body is forced to change and transform into that of a dragon, which typically results in the destruction of their own bodies. That transformation occurs when the user's anger, frustration, jealousy, or sorrow grows to a point where the seal you speak of is broken. So you're saying that Issei got angry and his seal was broken? Azazel summarized. But if that's the case, why wasn't Juggernaut Drive activated from the beginning? This question seemed to stump Tiamat as she took a minute to think it over before answering. At the warehouse I smelled something that reminded me of dragon slaying magic. I suppose that if Issei was under the influence of a dragon-slaying spell, that might have prohibited his body from undergoing a transformation that would make his body more draconic. I guess that makes sense. Azazel said with a nod. So that transformation was essentially a humanoid juggernaut drive. Oh no, that's not it at all. Tiamat said with a straight serious face. Issei and Ddraig have combined for a transformation completely different from juggernaut drive. If the juggernaut drive wasn't active when Issei's negative emotions reached their max, then those emotions would just continue to build. My guess is that Issei's rage built up to the point where it was comparable to Ddraig's own, and that emotional connection acted as a bridge that merged both of their souls. Ddraig's violent personality, being the stronger of the two, was able to take control, and that resulted in the violent creature we encountered tonight. Tiamat spoke with deep intelligence and understanding, as if she had been contemplating this topic even before Azazel had arrived. A merge of two souls. The Welsh dragon and his host combined. I think I'll refer to that state as the true Red Dragon Emperor. Azazel said pridefully. I believe that name suits. Tiamat nodded, but she quickly refocused. Now Azazel, there is something I must tell you regarding this information. The fallen angel leaned in closely so that Tiamat could whisper the information into his ear. As Azazel took in this new knowledge, his eyes widened in astonishment. Tiamat then pulled away from the angel's ear, leaving him in awe. My god. But Issei. Issei had run far from the warehouse we saw him last. When he finally slowed down, he was walking through a local graveyard. Issei made his way down the rows of graves until finally stopping in front of a single grave in the midst of hundreds. Most of the words inscribed across the large stone were blurred, but the one that was legible helped to emphasize the importance of this grave. Haidu. Written in stone across Issei's parents' grave. Issei dropped to his knees and began to grovel at the foot of the grave. I'm sorry. Issei sobbed as tears streamed down his cheeks. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I did it again. I promised I'd never kill anyone ever again, and I broke that promise. I didn't mean to, I couldn't help it. Please, please forgive me. Tears poured to the ground as the morning sun began to illuminate the graveyard. That's when Sirzechs finally caught up with the sniveling Red Dragon Emperor. His eyes filled with pity as he looked at the grave. Sirzechs decided now was the time to make himself known. Issei, was it? The unfamiliar voice shocked Issei and caused him to turn around quickly. When he recognized the face as the man who had accompanied Azazel early, his surprise turned to anger. What are you doing here? Issei's eyes sharpened. Who even are you? Well. Formally speaking, I'm Satan. Sirzechs said with a smile, causing Issei's eyes to widen. But more importantly, I'm Race's Ani-chan. Also, I'm the one who knocked you out of that dreadful form. By the way, is your stomach alright? After Issei recollected himself, he patted his abdomen lightly. It feels like I took a rocket launcher to the gut. Issei scanned the man top to bottom. Lucifer himself is related to the club president. Lucifer is more of a title, please call me Sirzechs. The devil's bright smile could have knocked the underwear off of 100 women. Then his expression saddened as he looked over at the grave. If these are your parents, then why do they share a grave? Issei lowered his head as he reminisced about the tragedy. After the fire, they only found enough of them to fill one coffin. And the remains were burned beyond recognition, so they couldn't tell who was who. That's awful. I'm so sorry. Sirzechs tried to give Issei time to cope with the refreshed memories, but something was bothering him. Issei-kun, I hate to push you in such a sensitive place, but I heard you imply that you have killed before. Can you please tell me about that? One night, when I was about 7 years old, my house caught on fire and Ddraig saved me. He offered me his power in exchange for my arm, and with that I escaped, but I didn't save my parents. More tears swelled up in Issei's eyes. In their time of need I hesitated, and they suffered the consequences. I could have saved them, but I didn't. Sirzechs couldn't help but be empathetic to the boy. He figured that the only thing he could do was offer Issei some words of condolence. That truly is tragic origin, Issei-kun, but you must know that the death of your parents was not your fault. You can't possibly expect a young child to deal with such a. Sirzechs found both his voice and breath taken from him as he was lifted off the ground. The dragon-like claw of the boosted gear had encompassed his throat as Issei lifted him into the air. Shut up. You don't know anything. Issei's eyes were full of tears and rage. Child or not, I had the power. I'm the Red Dragon Emperor, I could have saved them. I should have saved them. Sirzechs grabbed a boosted gear and using his own strength, forced Issei to release his grip. Issei then dispelled his gear and hunched over in defeat. I should have saved them, Issei continued. I should have saved them, but I was too weak. I was weak and people died, but now I'm strong and people still died, and it's my fault again. Weak or strong, I can't save anyone, so what's the point? Issei screamed into the air. Sirzechs put a comforting hand on Issei's shoulder and the boy rose from his slouch. Issei, I followed you today to tell you to no longer involve yourself with my sister because I believed you to be too dangerous. In the last minute I've spent with you, my judgment has taken a complete 180. Issei looked up in confusion at the Devil King, who flashed another bright smile. I now see you as a kind, well-meaning boy who finds passion in doing the right thing and making amends for past wrongdoings. Now that you've learned the consequences of power, I have no doubt that you'll grow stronger as a warrior and a man. I believe that you will be a wonderful influence on Rias. But the things I've done just recently. Issei looked the man in the eyes, hoping to find an answer. How could you possibly believe that I could be anything but trouble? And there are still things that you yourself have to learn. Like how to forgive yourself. Sirzechs sounded like a sage as he lectured the young dragon. I think you've kept those girls waiting long enough. A large magic circle appeared below Sirzechs' feet. It's time to go home. Sirzechs held out a hand to the boy and within a few seconds Issei took it. A red light covered everything in sight. Bork. The red circle appeared on the floor of the clubhouse and in another flash of red light Issei and Sirzechs appeared in the middle of the room. Silence filled the room as everyone waited for Issei to respond. After Issei overcame his slight embarrassment due to the awkward stares, he took a bow of sorrow. Guys, I'm so sore mph. Issei's face was shoved deep into Tiamat's large bosom as she wrapped him up in a big hug. Issei. You're back to normal. Her voice was filled with excitement. Asia followed behind the Dragon King and bowed respectfully. Welcome back Issei-kun. Thank you so much for saving my life, sorry that it caused so much trouble. She said mournfully. Kiba and Kaneko were the next to step up, much to Issei's surprise. Moo, you guys too. Nice to see you back to normal Haidu-san, Kiba said with a bright smile. No more glowing for you. Kaneko said in her monotone voice. I'm glad you're safe, Issei-san, Akeno commented with a close-eyed grin. I'll be honest, you're my only ex that I'm glad to see still breathing. Raynare joked. You gave everyone a pretty big scare. Ria said with a small pout. Ani-san better not have said anything embarrassing to you. And how long do you plan to keep your face between Tiamat-san's boobs? Tiamat looked down at the top of Issei's head. Yeah, usually you get pretty embarrassed when with it everyone realized the fact that Issei was in fact asleep and using the dragon's chest as a pillow. Geez, that's pretty rude. Ria said dismissively. You're gonna have to pay me back for that, but until that. Good night Issei-kun. Ah. Issei exclaimed as his eyes popped open. He woke up in an unfamiliar location. He wasn't at the orc house, rather a place that looked to be an empty void of blackness. The brown-haired boy rose to his feet and took in the rather limited scenery. What is this place? Ah. A woman's scream could be heard in the distance. Rias, Issei said as the familiar voice echoed in his ears. His head quickly whipped back and forth as he scanned the horizon. His eyes stopped as he discovered a large plume of red on the horizon. Well, that can't be good. Issei took off towards the mysterious red light. When Issei finally arrived on the scene, his eyes filled with horror at the scene laid out in front of him. Tiamat, Rias, Akeno, Kiba and Kaneko all laid face first in puddles of their own blood, totally unmoving, as Raynare and Asia huddled together in fear. Issei's shining red balance breaker, the eyes and gems glowed a bright red indicating the dominating fury from was activated, had the two pinned in place as it charged an energy blast in its palm. Issei didn't have time to mourn the loss of his friends, he had to do something. Hey! Issei shouted, getting the attention of the armor. The hulking suit of metal then rose, the hand charged with energy in the opposite direction of the two girls and let the blast go flying. What was that supposed to? Issei's voice quickly silenced as he realized just what the blast had hit. Issei's childhood home was now engulfed in flames, the flames that would seal his parents' fate. As bright and as hot as that night all those years ago. Issei began to quiver and shake as the pain of loss began to rush to his head. Why? His eyes were as wide open as they could be as he tried to comprehend what had just happened. You bastard. Issei lunged forward to attack the red dragon armor. Hey! Issei ready to punch to his side, but his gauntlet wouldn't appear. The large metallic gauntlet grabbed hold of Issei's other hand and pulled the boy close. Issei struggled as he tried to free himself from the armor's grasp. But the armor began to flex and contort as it forced Issei to look at its helmet. The large helm began to glow a bright red before fading into nothingness. Issei was left in utter shock as he looked himself in the eyes. Issei stopped struggling as his mind was too fixated on trying to comprehend the situation. The impostor Issei used this opening to grab Issei by the arm. Then with an evil smirk, he flung the original Issei towards the burning building. Issei screamed as he hurtled towards his burning house. The front door of the building suddenly opened, seemingly magically, and revealed a menacing red glow that Issei was now flying towards. Issei shot up in his bed with a loud scream. He quickly twisted his head to figure out why he wasn't surrounded by flames in a burning building. Ha 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 ha, Issei panted as he placed a hand on his forehead. A dream, of course. Issei continued to sit in his bed, not wanting to have another nightmare. He sat there quietly until he heard a familiar groan coming from his left side. He quickly ripped the sheets from that portion of the bed, revealing Asia on the verge of waking. The sleepy Asia slowly began to open her eyes as she looked up at Issei. Issei-kun, you're awake. Yeah, I had a bad dream. I'm sorry for waking you. Issei said, looking down at the girl with kind eyes. Asia sat up next to the boy and slowly shook her head, as if to say that she wasn't upset with him. Well, that's good, I hope you don't mind me asking, but what are you doing in my bed? Ria's told me I should stay with you. Asia said as she rubbed her eyes. She was wearing a long white t-shirt that covered her whole body. Asia then made her way closer towards Issei. Thank you for saving me. With that, the tired Asia collapsed on top of Issei and fell back to sleep. Well, Issei said awkwardly as an unconscious Asia laid on top of him. This is a bad thing, right? Next morning. Issei and Asia both made their way down to the kitchen, both of them obviously still tired. As they entered the kitchen, they were greeted by Tiamat. Morning. The Dragon King said cheerfully as she sipped from a coffee mug. Hope you two slept well. Now Issei, hurry up and cook me something tasty. Yes ma'am, the groggy Issei said with a weak salute before heading for the stove. Issei cracked an egg into a bowl and began to whisk it thoroughly. Yown. Asia struggled to keep her eyes open as she took a seat across from Tiamat. Morning. She said softly. Whoa, you guys look rough. Late night. The blue-haired woman said almost jokingly. Here, have some of this. Tiamat slid the mug of dark brown brew over to Asia. Yeah, Issei had a bad dream. Asia said as she took a sip of the coffee before quickly spitting the bitter liquid out of her mouth. A dad dream, seriously? Should I get you a nightlight? Tiamat mocked Issei with a small chuckle. Haha. Very funny. Issei said as he placed a ridiculously large stack of pancakes down in front of the Dragon King, causing her eyes to light up. Issei then placed a smaller plate down in front of Asia, as well as a mug filled with a liquid of a much lighter shade of brown, which Asia was able to drink more comfortably. Sorry for waking you. Tiamat saw this extra bit of attention and decided she should interrupt this. Ahem. The two then turned away from each other and looked at Tiamat. The redhead devil told me that both of you were to attend school today. This caused Issei to sigh with disappointment. Also, she said that she was going to move Asia to your class and that it was your responsibility to take care of her. Ugh. Fine. Issei relented. Issei then got a glimpse of his watch and quickly swallowed the lump of pancakes in his mouth. Then we gotta go, like now. Issei then grabbed Asia's hand and began to lead her to the door. Issei. Tiamat raised her voice slightly, causing the boy to stop in his tracks. You might want to do something about your clothing situation before you head off to school. Issei looked down to see that he and Asia were still in pajamas. Oh, you're right, thanks Tiamat. Hurry Asia, we have to get dressed really fast or we'll be late. Together, Asia asked with a bright blush on her face. No. Issei corrected, equally embarrassed. Tiamat, can you please help Asia out, I'm going upstairs to change. Tiamat gave Issei a firm nod. Thanks, and I need to ask you something important later, don't let me forget. Issei said from the entrance of the stairwell. Something important? Wait, Issei. Tiamat called out, but Issei had already disappeared up the stairs. Ha. The Dragon King sighed at the boy's impatience. Come on Asia, let's get you ready for class. Guo Academy. Issei exhaled in relief as he leaned back in his seat at his desk. Dang, that was close, but we made it on time. Suddenly a pink eraser smacked Issei in the face and caused his chair to fall from beneath him. Crash. You're dang right, that was close. Raynare scolded from the seat in front of Issei. Just because you don't really give a crap about school doesn't mean you should set a bad example. Bad example? Issei said as he stood back up and glared at his ex. And that leather bikini you wore the other day wasn't setting a bad example. Issei retorted, not considering where he was, and immediately people began to gossip behind him. Leather bikini? I thought they had broken up. It looks like they're arguing. Way to go, Dumbus. Raynare smirked. I would be so cocky if I were you. They are gossiping about you too, Issei deadpanned. Ahem. The faceless teacher called for the class's attention at the front of the room. Listen up everyone. We have a new student joining us today. She's come here all the way from Italy, now everyone please welcome her. The classroom door opened and Asia walked in, her face bright red in embarrassment. Hi, everyone, my name is Asia Argento, it's nice to meet all of you. She's so cute. The class exclaimed collectively. Issei smirked as she whispered to Raynare. I think she's already more popular than you, Weow. Tiamat began to dig her heel into the top of Issei's foot. Argento-san, please tell the class something about yourself. The teacher instructed. Well. I'm pretty new to the area and it's been a big adjustment. Just recently I moved in with Issei-kun, so I should be getting along much better now. Asia said with a bit more confidence. Ha. Raynare chuckled as vicious eyes began to bear down on Issei. Ogre-eyed Issei said with an eye roll. Another woman? Is that cute blonde girl a homewrecker? Haidu-kun is a playboy. Not to mention perverted. Rumors began to fill the classroom and Issei could feel his reputation sinking lower and lower. Anyway Argento-san, please take a seat wherever you can find one. The teacher said as he pulled a book out from under his desk and prepared to begin the lesson. The infamous perverted duo figured they'd take full advantage of the opportunity. Mitsuda quickly hopped up from the seat directly in front of Motohama and took the seat behind his friend, leaving an open spot in front of the two perverts. Slam. The duo's dreams were utterly crushed when Issei plopped down in the seat they had freed up for the cute blonde. Thanks guys. Issei said with a cocky smirk. There you go Asia, you can have my old spot. Asia looked over at the suggested spot. It was behind Raynare's seat and next to Issei's, so the familiar faces would definitely help her feel more comfortable. Thank you Issei-kun. He gave up his window seat for her. And he used her first name. There is definitely something going on between the two of them. More rumors piled up around Issei. Oh god, Issei closed his eyes as he tried to ignore the gossip. This is why I hate school. Later, outside. Ah ha 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 ha. A pair of girls sprinted around a large athletic track on school grounds. Their breasts bounced in their white t-shirts as they planted and ran. What are we even doing here? Issei asked Kiba as the two boys sat on a patch of grass and watched the activity. I mean, are we really just supposed to sit here during PE? Have you ever even seen our gym teacher? Now that you mention it, I don't think I ever have. Kiba replied with a smile. I don't understand why you're so shocked. In the research you had me do on Japan before we enrolled in school, I learned that it was tradition for Japanese male high schoolers to ogle the female students as they ran during PE class. Kiba said with a certain childlike innocence that made him even more enduring. Issei gave him an annoyed yet acknowledging glare. And what exactly were those sources you got your information from? Mostly anonyms. Why? Kiba asked with a raised eyebrow. Figures. Issei looked up into the sky and began his typical daydreaming. So Issei, how are things with you? I really don't mean to pry, but that transformation was pretty frightening and you looked pretty rough after it finally ended. Kiba asked, with honest concern in his voice, so Issei figured he should give him an answer. I'm fine. Issei answered with his eyes closed. You're right, it was pretty intense. I used so much energy. If I hadn't been a dragon, I'd have undoubtedly died, but I'll be fine. Even though I'm completely out of stamina, which is why I can't do any training with Tiamat for a day or two. I'm glad that you live. Kiba joked. Also, I think you have a visitor. Issei opened a single eye to find a short brown-haired girl standing sheepishly in front of him. Oh, Megumi-san. Did you need something? Megumi, second year, member of the female judo club. Haidu-kun, do you think that you could stop by the judo club this afternoon? For some instruction. Megumi's face was bright red as she attempted to speak in front of the two heartthrobs of Kuo. Why would you ask Issei-kun for instruction for the judo club? Kiba interrupted. Megumi was unprepared and began searching her brain for a reasonable answer. Well, you see. When I was in middle school I went to the national finals for judo. Issei finished for the small brunette. Yeah. That's totally why. Megumi said, her voice full of relief. No other reason whatsoever. And Kiba seemed a bit suspicious of the whole situation. Don't worry Kiba, I do this all the time. I just gotta check with Asia real quick. Issei stood up and turned his direction towards the girls on the track. Hey Asia. Wah. Asia screamed as the suddenness of Issei's call caused her to fall mid-stride. She quickly recovered and made her way towards Issei. You called me Issei-kun. Yeah. Megumi-san needs me to help out with the judo club this afternoon, so we're gonna be going home a bit late. Issei said with a smile. You should go to the club with me, maybe you can learn a thing or two. Asia looked rather unsure about this proposition. I don't know. Megumi then patted Asia's shoulder before whispering something into her ear. Hey, just go along with it, I promise it'll be something that'll interest you. Asia was unsure of what to say, but decided that she should agree with Megumi. Alright, I'll go. Judo club. Ha. 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 A row of girls dressed in the Kuo athletic clothes, t-shirts and bloomers took turns throwing punches into the air. Alright guys, who's ready for individual drills? One of the senior members announced. Haidu-kun, would you mind helping us out with this? Yeah, sure. Issei said with a smile. The line of girls formed in front of Issei and one after another. Then each of them fired a punch into Issei's palm. The next up was Megumi, only she had a sly grin plastered across her face. The brown-haired girl quickly fired her fist towards Issei, but rather than hitting Issei's palm, the girl's knees began to buckle and she began to fall. Gotcha. Issei quickly scooped the girl up out of the air before she hit the floor. You okay? What happened? Megumi's face was a bright red. I don't. Maybe I could use some extra instruction. I'll say. Issei placed the girl back on the ground. Your stance was totally unbalanced. Issei crouched down and focused his attention on her pale, smooth legs. Throw another punch, let me see what went wrong. Megumi quickly threw a second punch and once again her knees buckled and her legs shaked. Well, now I see the problem. Your stance is really sloppy. Issei then placed his hand on the interior of Megumi's thigh and began to press outwards. Ah, Megumi groaned as the sensitive area was caressed so forcefully, but with such expertise and purpose that it made the girl weak. Her stance softened even more. Oh, now this other sides could use a bit of work. Issei then grabbed the other thigh and moved it into position, but this time he lightly massaged it, shifting the muscle into the desired place, causing the girl to moan a bit louder. Something's still wrong. Your legs are in the right place, but there's still something wrong with your stance. Issei's eyes widened as he discovered the cause of the problem. His face lit a bright red. Megumi. To get the stance right, you're gonna have to lift your Issei gestured to the girl's rear end. By this time a large group of girls had gathered in anticipation of their own specialized training. No, Haidu-kun. I have no idea of what you're talking about, Megumi said as she stuck her butt out a bit further, smiling brightly on the inside. I don't care what it is. If it helps me to improve, please do whatever you want to me. Okay, just know that this is for your own good. Issei both hands on the base of each of Megumi's cheeks, causing her to flinch slightly. Slowly and carefully he pushed upwards as Megumi let out a sensual moan. Issei kept going and eventually pushed the girl's butt into the proper place, giving her a much more athletic stance. There we go. Issei quickly wiped the sweat from his brow. Megumi fired a much cleaner and more powerful looking punch forward. Thanks, Haidu-kun. That worked wonderfully. The cheerful girl skipped off into the crowd. Oh. Me next. My stance needs work too. I can't lift my butt up like that, you have to show me how. After helping nearly a dozen girls with their judo, Asia walked up to Issei with a concerned expression across her face. Issei. I don't think these girls want you here to help with their judo. Can we go? Oh, Asia. Issei turned around, his face was utterly expressionless. By this point he had been desensitized by the work he had done on the bodies of so many women. So you're next, let's see what you got. No, Issei, I'm not. Asia tried to step away as Issei slowly walked towards her. His head was tilted towards the ground and his hair covered his eyes. Come on, Asia, let's see it. Issei lifted his head and a vicious glare struck Asia dead in the eyes. Throw a punch. Eh? Asia cried out as she weakly thrusted her fist forward. Not good enough, Issei whispered before suddenly disappearing. Then out of nowhere he was behind Asia and enveloped her in a hug from behind. I'll show you how it's done, Issei whispered in the girl's ear. Hiya. The blonde girl squealed. Issei quickly tightened his grip around Asia's waist. You need to keep a tight core when you deliver a punch in order to keep stability. Issei then moved one of his hands and grabbed Asia by the wrist, pressing his muscular chest into the blonde girl's back. Ah ha ha ha. Asia began to pant as her face began glow a bright red. The experience was starting to become too much for the innocent girl's mind to comprehend. When you thrust it, you cannot hesitate. You must intend to hit the target. Issei flexed his hand so that it forced Asia to make a fist. Together Issei whispered into the girl's ear, to which she nodded. In one combined effort, Asia and Issei fired the girl's fist forward, causing a gust of air to follow after it. Good, Issei smirked. After being released, Asia fell to her knees and her face was completely red and seemed to steam a bit. Issei's expressionless face didn't change after the experience, but a single eyebrow of his did rise as a familiar face entered the room. Issei, Haidu, Asia Argento. It was Kaneko who walked up to the two. Her face was similar to Issei's in the sense that it also lacked expression. Your presence has been requested by Ria's Gremory. Please follow me. Oh, Kaneko. Are you also here for a lesson? Alright, let's see what you got. Issei reached out to grab the small girl's hand, but it was his arm that was caught. Suddenly Issei was flung into the air, then slammed down on the opposite side of Kaneko's body, leaving a small crater. With that attack, Issei returned to his old expression. Kaneko began to walk towards the exit. I think I'm good. Let's get going. Pervert. Kaneko violently swung the orc's wooden doors open, and without wasting a step she quickly entered the building. Following closely behind was a nervous Asia, and Issei brought up the rear looking rather bored. But you? I brought Asia and the pervert. Kaneko said as she led the two up to Ria's, who was sitting at her desk, an ironically devilish smile on her face. Once Kaneko had finished her task, she took a seat on a nearby sofa. Asia Argento, Issei Haidu. Issei and Asia exchanged looks at Ria's awkwardly formal greeting. I'm sorry for the sudden summon, but there is something I wanted to talk to the two of you about. Look, Issei decided to speak up. I'm sorry, alright. Those judo girls tricked me, I didn't mean to, I promise. If anything, I'm the one who was violated here. Issei crosses his arms as an embarrassed blush formed across his face. Ria's eyes perked up. Wait. What do you mean the judo girls tricked you? Why the hell would you feel violated? Ahem. Akeno interrupted. Rias, maybe you should cut to the chase. Right. Rias quickly collected herself. Issei, we'll talk about this later. Anyway, the reason I asked the two of you come here is because Rias of the House of Gremory Humbling asked the two of you to join my peerage and become devils. Ria said with a confident smile. ED devils. Asia jumped in shock as Issei rolled his eyes. You want me? Yes, Asia-san, I want you to join us. I value both you and Issei greatly and want both of you to be part of my family. Rias then turned to Issei with pleading eyes. Issei, I know that you've already refused, but I hope that the time we've spent on friendly terms has helped to change your mind. I want you to know that I'm deeply sorry for the complications we've faced in our past, and know that even if you refuse, we'll continue to be friends. Issei remained silent as he crossed his arms and refused to make eye contact with Rias. Wait, you refuse to join Ria's senpai's peerage? Can you tell me why? Asia asked, wanting to know all of the details before making such an important life choice. Issei's forehead crinkled and his expression stiffened as if he was revisiting painful memories. I can't remember. Issei said as his thinking face faded. But it was probably something important, cause I like Rias, so why else would I say no? So does that mean you've changed your mind? Rias said excitedly. Nope. Issei deadpanned. Sorry, but at this point it's a matter of principle. I already said no, and now I'm sticking to that decision, but I don't see any reason Asia shouldn't join. Rias relented with a sigh. I guess that's something. So Asia-san. What do you say? Asia immediately began tense up as attention began to build on her. Asia quickly bowed her in respect for the. I'm sorry, Ria-senpai, but could you please give me time to think this decision over? Asia said quickly in a panic. Of course, Asia-san. I don't want to pressure you into making such an important decision, take all the time you need. Ria said calmly, allowing Asia to relax. In fact, maybe the two of you should go home so that Asia can think this through. Rias then stood up from her desk and began to show her two juniors to the door. As they reached the door, Rias quickly tapped Issei on the shoulder. Listen, Issei, I know that tomorrow is Saturday, but I need you to meet me here tomorrow. There's something I need your help with. Issei lifted an eyebrow. I don't. Great. Rias interrupted with a bright smile. See you then. The red-haired devil quickly slammed the door, not giving Issei time to retort. Asia and Issei once again exchanged confused looks. Let's just go home. Issei's house. Welcome home. Tiamat called out from the living room as the two entered the house. The Dragon King was lazily spread across the couch watching television. Rough day? Issei snipped sarcastically. Not really. Tiamat was very straightforward as if she didn't pick up on Issei's tone. What about you two? We, Issei and Asia said simultaneously. Let's just say it's been a long day. Issei finished as he plopped down next to Tiamat. So Asia, have you thought at all about this whole devil thing? I'm still not sure. It's such a big change from everything I've known before. Back in the church, I never fit in. I didn't have any friends and I think a lot of people hated me, but I still had my faith. You are my friend and Rias and her peerage are very nice, but it feels like if I join them then I'm betraying everything I've ever known. Asia explained in a serious yet knowledgeable tone. Yeah, I guess going from the church to becoming a devil is a pretty big jump. I do think you should consider Ria's offer, maybe a drastic change is just the thing you need. Issei looked down at his hands, and his eyes saddened. Change is the truest test a man will ever face, that's what my grandfather told me. When life throws the worst at you, it's the way you move on and deal with the situation is what matters the most. That's when Issei realized the attention that he had gathered. But that's just my 2 cents. Would you look at the time, I better start cooking dinner. Who wants fried chicken? With that, Issei stood up and awkwardly made his to the kitchen. So the red-haired devil girl asked you to join her peerage? Tiamat said suddenly, causing Asia to jump. I guess that's right. Asia eventually was able to answer. But I have no idea what I should do. You're in a pretty good situation, you know. From what I hear, a devil is almost nothing but positives. Your lifespan increases to a point of near immortality, you gain a whole slew of magical powers like teleportation and fancy wings, and you'll be able to have your own peerage who will do anything you say. Tiamat then closes up to Asia's ear and began to whisper. You may even be able to say one of your servants. This caused Asia's spine to shiver. Really the only downside is that you'd be a servant to someone for a few hundred years, but I hear the Grimoires are pretty lenient with their servants, so that's pretty good for you. Tiamat smirked as she fell back into her seat. So what do you think? Well, it's not that the offer isn't tempting, but I'm still not sure about this. It's just such a huge change, I don't know if I should. Asia fidgeted and mumbled, causing Tiamat to frown. Well, if you truly feel that becoming a devil is the wrong choice for you, then I must ask you to leave here and stay away from Issei. Tiamat's words were like daggers, and they caused Asia to wince slightly before looking up with hurt and confused eyes. It's really nothing personal, Asia-san, but if you insist on remaining human, then you mustn't be allowed to get any closer with Issei. If you wish to remain immortal, then you can't be with Issei, who is not. Tiamat's serious eyes kept Asia from responding as she continued her rant. I will not allow Issei to experience the heartbreak of losing someone close to him to the torture of an inevitable death. You couldn't imagine the pain that can cause a person. The way Tiamat spoke, it was almost as if she had experienced it firsthand. I am sorry, I had no idea, but can you please give me some time? I'm still not sure what I should do, but I don't want to leave yet. Asia pleaded with the Dragon King. Tiamat sat quietly and thought Asia's request over. Fine. But I urge you to make your decision quickly. Dinner's ready. Issei called out from the kitchen. For everyone's sake. Tiamat finished as she left the living room, followed by a nervous Asia. Next day at the Orc. Ugh, Issei groaned as he walked up to the door of the old school building. He then opened the door with a slam that notified everyone in the club of his arrival. Alright, let's do this, so I can go home. Issei, you're late. Rias had already prepared their magic circle and was waiting impatiently on the boy. I thought you devils worked best at night, it's barely dusk. Issei complained. Just get in the circle and let's go. Rias commanded and Issei hesitantly did so. You're not a devil, so you should probably hold on to me. Rias then slipped her arm under Issei's shoulder and pulled him in close, burying his arm into her Issei's arm, causing him to blush. Wow, Issei-kun does have a weakness. I'll have to keep that in mind. Suddenly Ria's magic circle flashed a bright red and the two had vanished. Job location. With a second flash of red light, the two teenagers reappeared in a strange room full of samurai-themed decorations. Haha, Issei shivered as he left the circle. That was super weird. I think I'm walking home. Issei then looked around the room and a grim expression formed across his face. Oh great, a samurai otaku. Issei, be nice. Ria scolded. Everyone has passions, you should respect that. I mean, it's obvious you're a big fan of shonen mangas. How did you know that? Issei's eyes grew with shock before he quickly calmed himself down. You're right. It just reminds me of my grandfather, and that brought up some bad memories. Rias tried to place a sympathetic hand on the boy's shoulder, but Issei shrugged it off. Hey look. Issei changed the subject as he made his way over to a full set of samurai armor. This is some pretty nice armor, it almost seems real. Why, thank you. The suit of armor began to speak and move, causing Issei to jump. Ah. Issei fell back onto his butt, causing Rias to chuckle slightly. Hey, are you the devils? The samurai asked nervously. Her voice was very high and definitely feminine, you could also hear tones of shyness. I am. Rias stepped up and made with the introductions. My name is Rias Grimoire. This is Issei Haidu, he's a dragon, not a devil. The armored lady was confused at first, but then came to a conclusion of her own. Oh, so he's your pet. Issei busted a blood vessel as Rias chuckled. Hell no. Issei yelled, startling the girl who began to swing her sword in his direction to defend herself. Hey, watch it. Issei said as he dodged the blade. I'm sorry for scaring you, but I'm nobody's pet. Rias then grabbed Issei by the shirt and moved him behind her. I'm sorry, that Issei's startled voice. Ria's calming voice was able to stop the woman from flailing her blade. Anyway, how can we help you? Oh yes, my request. The armored woman bowed apologetically for wasting time. My name is Susan, but please call me Susan-san. I called you here today for an unbelievably dangerous task. Issei's ears perked up at this. I regret to inform the two of you, but Susan dropped to her knees in disgrace. I left my notebook in my classroom this afternoon. Rias and Issei quickly exchanged looks. Are you serious? Susan-san, that's awful. Issei gave Rias a dirty look as she made her way to comfort the armored girl. Don't worry, I promise you, Issei, and I will do everything in our power to retrieve this notebook. Really? The blonde curls coming out from behind Susan's helmet began to perk up. Of course. Just tell us where it is and we'll retrieve it. Ria's smile immediately helped Susan to feel better, even Issei's mood was improved. It's at my university a few blocks from here. Susan said as she returned to her feet. Well, that should be a cinch for you, Issei. Just use balance breaker. As Ria said this, a drop of sweat formed on Issei's forehead. It's already night, so you should be able to jet down there and back in a few seconds. As Riaz continued, more and more sweat beads formed on Issei's face. Issei chuckled awkwardly before his face lit up as if he got an idea. Well, you see, using the balance breaker like that would be a total waste. Not only that, it would also be disgraceful to Ddraig if I used his power on mere errands. Riaz raised an eyebrow at Issei's excuses. So you see, no balance breaker tonight. But don't worry, I'll get your notebook myself. Susan was quick to interject. Oh no, Dragon Kun. I couldn't possibly ask you to go by yourself. I'll go with you, plus I know where the notebook is, so I have to go. Issei looked up at the armored woman with a frightening samurai mask. Oh yay. 30 minutes later. Arigato, Devil-san, Dragon Kun. I got my journal back and it's all thanks to you too. Susan bowed, notebook firmly in her grasp. Well, Issei, how was it? Riaz said jokingly. Issei glared at the red-haired devil. Sarwa Hidakata. This caused Riaz to chuckle. Anyway, let's just go home. Wait, Riaz walked over to Susan, looking rather concerned. Susan-san, we completed your task, but I can still sense anxiety in you. Is there something bothering you? Oh Devil-san, I'm sorry for worrying you. Susan grabbed hold of both of Riaz's hands and began to relay her plight. My H2 aches for the one I love, but unfortunately my shyness keeps me from telling him how I feel. Dude, that sucks. Issei interrupted. Well, this was fun. Riaz, I think I'm gonna walk home. Issei, wait. Riaz grabbed a boy by the hand and pulled him in for a quick powwow. We have to help her out with this. Listen Riaz, I understand, but if I don't feed Tiamat soon she might eat Asia. Issei's eyes looked very serious as if he wasn't joking. Issei eventually relented after receiving a death glare from the young devil. Fine, I'll help. Riaz then turned to face Susan with a smile. Good news Susan-san, we're gonna help you to confess your feelings. Really? Susan's mask seemed to sparkle in delight. Yep, and Issei here is one of the only guys I know that have actually had a girlfriend. Riaz said, putting the reluctant boy front and center. So he should be a big help. Issei, why don't you tell Susan-san how you and Raynare-chan got together? Oh that? Issei seemed a bit caught off guard. Well, really, she just asked me to be her boyfriend and she was really pretty and seemed nice and there was just something about her that was intriguing. So she just asked you? Riaz paused for a second before her face flushed a bit red. In that case. Yeah, I'm never gonna make that mistake again. Issei interrupted with a dismissive wave. Yeah, you should really get to know someone before you try and start any type of relationship, and that goes for anyone. Anyway, Riaz, were you saying something? No, not really. Yeah, sorry Susan-san. I guess that wasn't very helpful. Issei took a second to think up a new plan. I got it. Issei slammed his fist into his open palm. If you get nervous talking to the guy, you should just write him a letter. Beretto Susan thought about the idea. Bro, I'm not that guy, but that's kinda racist. Issei said seriously, but got ignored. Dragon Kun, that's brilliant. I'll write a letter. Susan leapt in excitement as she rushed over to grab pen and paper. That was a pretty good idea. Riaz commented as Susan was hard at work. How did you think of it? When I was younger I used to write angry letters to my grandfather and threw them away. It wasn't productive, but it helped relieve stress. Issei explained, causing Riaz to look at him with concerned yet intrigued eyes. One of these days I wanna hear all about your past. Riaz asked with a smirk. Issei smiled back at the girl. That would be nice, oh god. Susan had her letter tied to the end of an arrow and prepared to fire it. I'm ready. Later. Riaz, Issei and Susan all stood in a nearby park as the morning light set the mood. Issei quickly looked at his smartphone to find multiple unanswered calls from Tiamat, causing Issei's spine to crawl in fear. That's it, I'm dead. Issei, SSSHHHHHH. Riaz's gaze was firmly placed on Susan as both of them waited in anticipation. This is gonna be so romantic. If he shows. The cynical Issei was ignored once again until he heard a clank sound. All eyes had shifted to a moving suit of armor that presumably contained Susan's crush. Protruding from the armored man's head was the end of the arrow containing Susan's letter. Well, Issei wasn't the least bit surprised by the turn of events. Well, he got the letter and he showed up, but I'm still not sure his is gonna turn out romantic. Susan-san. The armored man said in his demanding voice, sounding almost threatening. I received your letter. He pointed to the arrow on his head as Susan's knees began to shake. My darling, you have pierced my heart as well as helmet. Oh, Hari-kun. Susan began to run towards the armored man. Susan-san. The two lovers embraced in the middle of the park, leaving Issei and Riaz to bask in the warmth of the moment. I gotta admit this is pretty nice. Issei said quietly, not wanting to interrupt the scene at hand. Yeah, it is. Riaz slowly grabbed Issei by the hand, causing him to blush. What are you? Issei stuttered as a red light began to glow from beneath him. Time to go. Ria smiled and the glow intensified. Wait. No. Issei screamed as he and Ria's disappeared in a bright red light. Orc. Ah ha ha, Issei panted as he was released from Ria's magic circle. I think I'm gonna barf. Thanks for coming tonight, Issei, it was nice having company. Maybe we should make this a regular thing. Ria smiled as she took a seat at her desk. Yeah, I don't know about that. Issei said as he plopped down on one of the couches to rest and settle his stomach. So what do you think? Ria's asked vaguely. Issei popped open one of his eyes. About what? About love. About finding the person you're meant for, like Susan-san. Ria said as she looked down at her fumbling hands. Issei took a second to think before answering. Well, if you're gonna do it, that's how it should be done. Natural, honest, and sincere. Nothing forced, no pressure. Just two people letting each other know that they care about them. That's how I'd want to do it. Ria's wasn't expecting something so genuine from the battle manic Issei. His sincerity made Ria's blush slightly. Why yeah, me too. A shaking Issei stared in horror at a smoldering pile of rubble that had once been his home. Issei's entire body shook as all the emotions built up in his head. He was much too traumatized to straight up sob over the loss of his parents, but that didn't stop a few tears from rolling down his cheek, all while blurring sirens filled the air with noise. This really is a shit show. One of the police officers commented to a colleague. We still haven't found a single body. Yeah, you're right. The second cop said as he jotted down some notes into a small notepad. Wait. The cop then noticed Issei. Is that a kid? The two policemen began to jog towards Issei, but that startled the boy, who attempted to run. Wait. Kid. The cop managed to grab hold of the fleeing Issei's arm. We need to ask you a oof. The police officer was suddenly stunned by a powerful punch from Issei, much stronger than any 7-year-old should be capable of. Issei tried to run again, but was completely wrapped up by the second cop. Come on, man. What are you doing letting kids kick your butt? As for you, we just want to ask you some question. Issei tried to struggle, but the cop put too much force that Issei couldn't overcome. Cool it, will ya? The winded cop said as he regained his balance. Can't you see the kid's in shock? We won't get any information from him right now. Let's just put him in the car and wait for his next of kin to come get him. The two men picked the still struggling Issei up and began to carry him off. Regardless of how hard he tried, Issei couldn't free himself. No. The previously silent Issei extended an arm out to the burning rubble. Mommy. Daddy. No. No. The world seemed to go completely silent as Issei was dragged away from the gruesome scene. The boy finally stopped his struggling as everything began to set into his mind. The next thing he knew, Issei sat silently shaking in the back of a police car. His face was red and puffy, clearly he had been crying. Issei had been alone for some time now, even Ddraig had decided it was best for him to be left alone. Issei was no longer crying, not because his sadness had faded or diminished, but because his eyes were empty of tears. The silence would at last come to an end when the police car door was opened abruptly. Issei turned his drowned eyes over his shoulder. He was met by the face of an elderly Japanese man with very stern features. A shiny dome of skin donned the top of the man's head and long strands of silver hair protruded from just below this bald spot. The man's old body was clothed in a long traditional grey kimono with a black cloak on top. Well, here he is. A nervous police officer said, gesturing to Issei. Yeah, I can see that. I know what my own grandson looks like. The young cop awkwardly froze as Issei's grandfather rudely dismissed him. A laser-like glare then shifted to Issei. Let's go, boy. Issei's weak eyes moved up to meet the man's. Hurry, let's go. Issei's grandfather commanded. Before I put you in an orphanage. Issei was slow to leave the car and join the rather abrasive man. The two didn't speak as Issei followed the old man away, a pillar of smoke billowing behind them. Later. Issei stood alone in the center of a large garden, dressed in a small navy blue kimono. It had been a few days since the death of the boy's parents, and he has since moved into his grandparents' traditional Japanese mansion. Flashback. Things will be different here, boy. Issei's grandfather scolded. That idiot father of yours has been raising you wrong for 7 long years. And no. Issei stood up in a weak defiance, still emotionally crippled by the death of his parents. My daddy was nice and smart and. Shut it, boy. The elderly man snapped. Your father was a fool, I knew this from the moment I met him. I guess I have little room to talk since I was foolish myself when I entrusted my whole world to him and he destroyed it. Issei had no words to speak, he realized his grandfather had just lost his daughter, but he didn't want his father to be bad-mouthed. It frustrates me to no end that every time I look at you, all I see is that fool. The old man began to ball his fist as rage filled his heart. But you won't be like him, I won't raise a fool. But his stiff expression then softened. Listen, I know you must still be in shock, and me blaming your father must not be helping, but your mother was my whole world, my little girl. The stoic man didn't allow himself any tears as his heart boiled. And to honor her memory, I will make sure that you grow into a man. Issei looked up at his grandfather and began to feel some sense of comfort in a world that seemed very dark. But it won't be easy. Issei's grandfather quickly dispelled the aura of touching sentiment. You'll work hard, study hard, and there won't be time for goofing off. You understand me? Why yes, sir. Flashback ends. Issei had been staying at his grandparents' mansion for a few weeks at this point, but he still wasn't comfortable. There was nothing wrong with his beautiful new home, and the trauma was finally starting to become a memory, but something was still missing. I want to go home. Issei wiped his watery eyes as he began to tremble, and Full started to sob. Boy. A circular green gem formed on the back of Issei's hand, and the dragon began to speak for the first time since that night. Please dry your eyes. I understand your frustrations. Your fear, your sorrow, your anger. I see it all clearly. Ddraig. Issei remembered the dragon's name and was intently listening to everything he had to say. Right now you must be feeling distraught, cast out, and terrible alone. But you must know from now on you'll never be alone. Issei lit up at this and Ddraig continued, you and I are now partners until the day you die. Issei couldn't contain his happiness as joy began to leak through his eyes. After the loss of his parents, Issei couldn't help but be overjoyed as his loneliness began to fade away from him. But why? The sad child began to mumble. Why me? Why now? I'm not special or strong, I couldn't even help my family. Why was I chosen to carry your power? The short answer, Ddraig was quick to respond, is that you weren't chosen. At least not by me. I have no control over who my hosts are when I am reincarnated, and if I did it's unlikely that you would have been chosen. As this new information began to sink in, Issei's head began to droop. That does make sense. Issei's eyes began to fill with tears as his imagination ran wild. But if I hadn't been lucky, then I too would have. The flames from his house began to consume his mind, causing the boy to shake. But you are in fact my wielder, and you did survive the flames. Ddraig replied, allowing Issei to calm down. I know that you must feel traumatized by the events that befell your family and home, but you can't allow that event to define you. But I don't know what to do. Issei was in a panic state, he buried his distraught face into his palms as he tried to fight back his tears. What can I do? There you are. A large commanding voice erupted from across the garden. With quick and heavy steps, Issei's grandfather came barreling towards the boy. What do you think you're doing, boy? Your 11:30 tutor arrived 3 minutes ago. Issei jumped at the arrival of his grandfather. I was just crying. I know exactly what you're doing. Issei's grandfather quickly seized the boy by his wrist and began to drag him towards his lessons. Men are strong, men don't cry. Crying is useless. If you ever want to be worth anything to anyone you have to be much stronger. Issei's grandfather didn't know yet the great impact his words would have on the young boy. I have to be much stronger. 9 years later. A 30-year-old Japanese man wearing a white guy with a black belt screamed as he was flung violently into the ground. Suddenly a white blur encompassed the grounded man, and within a second each of his limbs had been pinned, and Issei held a threatening fist over his face. And that's it. Match over. A loud voice announced over the speaker, and a large uproar arose from a nearby crowd. With that merciless victory, Issei Haidu has just won the annual Kyoto Jujutsu competition for the 4th year in a row along the 10 million yen. Wow. What a young man. Can you believe he's only just now entering his first year in high school? The announcer said as Issei wiped sweat from his brow and made his way to exit the arena. Give it up one last time for our new champion Issei Haidu. The crowd broke out cheering as Issei entered a tunnel that took him beneath the stadium seats. Well, that was boring. Issei said to himself as he entered the locker room. I mean, it's like they were moving in slow motion. Well, what did you expect? You want to talk about sports performance enhancers? The world's greatest steroid is attached to your hand. A sarcastic Ddraig was quick to reply. I don't understand why you participate in these meaningless martial arts tournaments. It's not like you need the money. Hey, you're the one who told me I should learn martial arts. Issei quickly argued back. I thought that if I was ever gonna find any competition it'd be at one of these tournaments. Competition, huh? Might I suggest toddlers next? Be honest, you love the attention and the acclaim. Ddraig said, causing Issei to blush with embarrassment. Not to mention the fact that it pleased your grandfather. Yeah, Issei quickly rolled his eyes. If only. Issei exited the arena building and was met outside by a large muscular man wearing a formal suit. Issei-sama, your grandfather requests your presence immediately. We have a car for you. Well, we wouldn't want to keep the old man wait, would we? Issei smirked as he followed the hulking man to a black limousine. In the car. The limousine cruised at high speeds down lonely roads surrounded on both sides by thick green forests. Issei sat cross-legged at the back of the long car, the golden tournament trio to his right. Issei's eyes were tightly focused on the forests outside. "What's wrong, partner?" A concerned Ddraig spoke up. "You look worried about something." Today I'm gonna ask him." A soft yet serious voice, eyes not wavering from the window, as the limousine pulled up to a large opening metal gate and entered the mansion grounds. The mansion. Issei had changed clothes and was wearing a traditional kimono and stood stiffly in front of a paper door in a dark hallway. He took a deep breath in. Well. Here it goes." Issei entered the room and made eye contact with his grandfather who sat patiently on a floor pillow in the near empty room, his eyes shut tightly, waiting for him. "The boy. Issei." "Yes, grandfather." Issei respectfully said as he took a seat across from the man. "How did you fare in your tournament?" he asked, his eyes remained closed. "I won again, grandfather. Easily." Issei was proud of this accomplishment but didn't let too much of that pride show. "Good." The man opened his eyes and they seemed strangely soft and kind. "You really have grown a lot since you've arrived here. Your mother would be proud." Issei's eyes grew 3 sizes, he wasn't expecting the sudden compliments. Thank you, sir." Issei fumbled with his words but quickly regained himself. "But I know I still have so much growth yet." Issei's grandfather looked down at his hands as he thought for a second. "That's true." "Grandfather?" Issei made direct eye contact with the man, his eyes filled with serious intent. "That's why I want to ask you if you'll allow me to travel abroad." The old man was quite surprised by this request and didn't have answer prepared. "Travel abroad? Whatever for? What's wrong with Japan?" "Nothing's wrong with Japan, but there's so much of the world I need to learn." Issei replied, determination practically pouring from his eyes. "I wish to travel to Europe and learn Western culture and history. I've already completed my education for the first year of high school with the tutors here and I can finish the rest abroad. I can also use my jujutsu winnings to pay for it myself. Please, grandfather, I know that this will be beneficial to me." "No." Issei's grandfather sternly refused, leaving Issei wide-eyed in confusion. "You're not wrong, the experience would probably be beneficial, but I've already made plans for you." Issei's grandfather stood up and glared down at the boy. "You've lived in this mansion for 9 years. You've had tutors instead of teachers, servants instead of friends, and don't think I'm unaware of how you sneak off into the woods night after night. You need to have interactions with people your own age, so this year you will attend school in your hometown of Kuo High School." Issei stood up as well, meeting his grandfather's gaze. "What could I possibly learn in school? Why would I need to interact with people my age? You always told me I was gonna take over your company when my education was finished. How am I supposed to run a global corporation with no knowledge of the world?" "I've sold the company," Issei's grandfather replied with serious authority. "What? Why would you? You won't be ready," Issei's grandfather answered abruptly. "You won't be ready in time. I'm not saying I won't let you travel. I'll try to get you enrolled in second-year classes, then in 2 years you can go and see the world, but you will be attending school." "But I..." "Don't argue. It's been decided." Issei's grandfather sat back down and didn't keep eye contact with the boy. "Now leave me. I have more business to attend to." Issei glared down at the old man, but his mind was made and he would not relent. Issei then turned and stopped towards the door. When he opened it, it revealed a woman behind the paper sheet. She was a tall Japanese woman wearing a colorful kimono. Her face was covered in white powder and her hair was tied back in a traditional fashion. She looked like a Japanese woman from the feudal period, but her eyes shined a bright yellow. Issei stared in awe as she silently passed him and made her way towards his grandfather. Issei didn't remember moving, but the next thing he knew he was outside the room and the paper door had been shut behind him. What was that? At night in the forest. Boost. That should be enough, Issei, let it fly. Ddraig instructed as Issei. A shirtless Issei held a glowing ball of energy at the end of his crimson gauntlet. His clothing concealed it well, but his well-toned musculoskeletal began to ripple as Dragon shot. Hey Aya. Issei reeled back and fired his dragon-like fist into the energy ball, sending it flying forward. Boom. A large explosion erupted in the distance as the energy blast landed. "Oops." Issei said with a tone that was both sarcastic and angry. "Hope nobody saw that. I can see you're frustrated, but your grandfather said you could go to Europe in a few years, we just have to wait a bit longer." "I can't wait anymore. I'm no closer to balance breaker than I was 2 years ago. If there's anyone who knows about the Welsh dragon, he'd probably be in Wales," Issei argued. "The longer I wait, the stronger the vanishing dragon gets. What if he can already use balance breaker? I need to get stronger now." "I understand where you're coming from." Ddraig agreed. If it's any consolation, you've gotten strong enough physically, all you really need is a drastic emotional catalyst. Well, let's give it a shot. Issei said after a quick stretch. I'm feeling pretty emotional right now. Issei lifted his gauntlet and the green gem began to glow. Explosion, a large green flash emitted from the gem and the gauntlet increased in size and the number of spikes had been multiplied and another green gem had formed farther down on his arm. Issei spread his legs and took a very athletic stance as he bent his arm so that his gauntlet was parallel to his torso and faced away from his body. Hey Aya. Boost 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 boost. As the time between boosts decreased, a small red aura began to form around Issei's body. Boost 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 boost. Aya. Issei's veins began to pop as he continued to yell and glow slightly. Balance break. The green gems on Issei's gauntlet began to glow intensely, but suddenly this glow faded and the gems went dark and Issei's aura faded. Damn it. Issei dropped to his knees and took a few quick breaths as his gauntlet faded away. Still not strong enough. Issei sat silently for a moment until. Issei-sama. Issei-sama. One of the mansion's staff members rushed out of the bushes, panting from fatigue. Issei-sama, ha 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 ha. Yes. Issei stood to meet the tired man. Is everything alright? No, ha ha ha, your grandfather, he had a heart attack. This alarming news caused Issei's eyes to explode with shock and fear. At the hospital. Grandfather. Issei yelled as he bursted into a sad grey hospital room. His grandmother was sobbing as well, being consoled by a doctor, and his grandfather lied motionless on his hospital bed, dozens of tubes and life-preserving machines connected to his body, simply delaying the inevitable. Grandfather, Issei said softly at the man's bedside. But you're here. The man said in the weakest voice Issei had ever heard as he prepared to relinquish his cling to life. I'm glad I got to see you before I passed. Grandfather Issei was silenced by an old weak finger. Listen to me. The old man shifted his head so that he was staring at the ceiling. You've always been a good boy and I know you'll be great man. Your father was a good man and your mother was an amazing person. They would have raised you so much better than I ever could have. That's not. SHHH, Issei. Let an old man ramble. His words were kind as death began to take hold. I'm honored to know that you and I share blood. I may not have been your father, but I'm so proud to say that you're my son. Tears began to swell in the boy's eyes as the old man began to close him. Remember, a real man shouldn't cry, but I'll give you a pass this one time. The grandpa I tears rolled down Issei's face, but his words couldn't come out and now he was too late. Yep. The loud heartbreaking ring of the electrocardiogram rang through the hospital room as Issei's grandfather finally passed on. No, Issei's pupils dilated as the shock and sorrow filled his heart and mind. Not again. In Issei's eyes the room began to change a dark red tinge as he looked around in distress. No, 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 no. Imaginary flames began to erupt across the hospital room as Issei began to panic. The doctor placed a hand on the boy's shoulder in an attempt to comfort him, but a frightened Issei quickly shrugged this off and rushed out of the room. Issei ran for the exit of the hospital and away from fake fire, but as he sprinted down a hallway time seemed to slow. In the slow motion second Issei turned to see the golden-eyed woman walking slowly down the hallway as he passed her. Issei stopped in his tracks and quickly turned around, but the woman had vanished, leaving just an empty flaming hallway. Issei rushed out the front door of the hospital. When he looked back, the entire building was engulfed in flames. He rubbed his eyes and the fire was God. Oh God, Issei looked down at his shaking hands before fleeing into the nearby woods. Issei kept running. He ran out of steam in front of a giant tree. Ha! Issei fired a fist into solid wood. Ha! 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 Issei fired fist after fist into the tree, not budging the massive plant. Issei then summoned his gauntlet and fired another blow, causing the tree to shake. Hi-ah. Hyyyah. Hi-ah. Hi-ah. Issei's final blow toppled the mighty tree, which landed in a loud thud. Ay-ha-hey-ah-hey. Issei sobbed and screamed at the sky, giving into rage and sorrow, but then his gauntlet's green gem began to glow. Welsh dragon. Balance breaker. Issei's body was encased in a bright red light and rush of power. And in the next moment he had transformed into his crimson draconic armor. Issei wasn't about to celebrate this achievement as he dropped to his knees and buried his head into the twin gauntlets, as sobs could be heard even through his helmet and darkness began to fill the scene. Next day. Issei and his grandmother stood solemnly in an empty cemetery as they looked on at the recently placed gravestone. The ceremony had already completed and now the two stood alone. I want you to go. Issei's grandmother said softly, confusing Issei. You can go to Europe, I want you to. There are too many sad memories here for you, you need to be somewhere new for a while. Really? Issei said, more curious than excited, for it was still too early for him to experience joy. Thank you grandmother. Please call me Obasan, but your grandfather was right, you still need to go to school. The elderly woman said with a stern shake of her finger. Since you completed your first year studies I'll give you 1 year abroad, but after that you'll be attending Kuo Academy like your grandfather wanted. Obasan. Issei was happy with the compromise and was proud to meet his grandfather's last request. Thank you very much, I promise. I know you will, Issei. She said with a smile. Now wake up. Huh. Issei took a step back in confusion. Wake up. Present day. Wake up. Ria's Gremory pounded her small fist on Issei's chest. Ahhh. Issei screamed as he sat up in his bed, throwing Ria's off his chest. He then looked down at his bed sheets in confusion. That was a dream, or memory, or something. He then looked down at his bedroom floor to find Ria's. What are you doing here? The red-haired girl then pounced back on the boy, her eyes filled with desperation. Issei, please, make love with me. What? I need you to take my virginity. Ria's reiterated as she climbed farther on top of Issei. Her face was flushed with embarrassment and was nearly as red as her hair. She hesitated for a split second but quickly found her resolve as she yanked her shirt off. I still don't. Holy Issei's concerns were put on hold as Ria's bountiful chest had been placed in full view for the young boy. This was the first time he'd seen them so close up, and even though they were still concealed by her underwear, Issei couldn't help but be mesmerized by them. Ria's then moved to undo her bra and Issei was quick to snap from his daze. Whoa. This doesn't make sense. Why are you doing this? Issei grabbed hold of the girl's shoulders to keep her from stripping. I don't have time to explain. Ria said as she struggled to free herself from the Issei's grasp. Now let me go and let's do it. All you have to do is relax and let this happen. Look, I'm still pretty weirded out from a horrible memory I just had and you really aren't making things better. Issei struggled back in order to keep the girl still. Ooh. Ria's quickly pinched Issei's thigh, getting him to let go. In the split second that Issei used to recover, Ria slipped the white bra off of her chest, leaving the mounds of flesh to bounce freely. Issei stared for a while, causing Ria's to blush a bit more. Hiya. Ria screamed as she jumped slightly. She took a quick glance down, before looking back at Issei. Her face almost glowed red. I guess that means you're ready to go. This time it was Issei who blushed intensely. Wait, I'm not. Ria's didn't wait, she shifted herself on the boy's lap and forced Issei to lie back down in his bed. I'm sorry, I wish there was more time. Ria's leaned in, uncomfortably close to the boy's face. I know I've been pretty selfish tonight, but if it's any consolation, you were my first choice. Ria's leaned in to meet Issei's lips. What's going on here? Issei's mind began to race as Ria's closed in on his face. Her beautiful features mere inches from Issei's eyes, letting the boy take it all in. Oh wow, has she always looked like this? Wait. Issei snapped out of his daze. This is a bad thing. No. Issei's voice filled the room with authority, causing Ria's to look down at the boy. His head was turned away from her and his expression was clearly a troubled one. Oh, you don't. Ria's lifted herself back up. She had just been rejected and given her current state of distress, she tried to fight off tears. I'm sorry, Issei. She got up off the bed and slowly backed away, covering her breasts with her arms. I'll go. Wait. Issei quick sat up in his bed, revealing he wasn't wearing a shirt. At least tell me what's going on. Maybe I can help. This time it was Ria's who looked down towards the floor. She was worried and distraught when she had arrived and now she was embarrassed and rather angry with Issei. With all these emotions occupying her head, she was rather reluctant to stay any longer. No. I think I'd rather go. Okay, I understand. Issei said softly, leaving an awkward tension. Suddenly a bright light erupted on the bedroom floor, getting the attention of both of them. Is that you? Issei asked, getting more accustomed to magic. No. Ria said within an angry tone. But I have a pretty good idea about who it is. The tower of red light rose up from the glowing circle and began to materialize into a humanoid figure. As the light began to fade, it revealed a tall gray-haired woman dressed in a maid's outfit. Ria-sama. The maid spoke with a powerful voice, one that demanded respect and attention. This is highly immature behavior. If you think your actions will. The woman stopped mid-sentence as she observed the scene. Ria's and Issei were at opposite sides of the room and an rather tense aura occupied the space. What happened here? Nothing happened. Ria's answered harshly, but with a hint of sadness that she tried to mask. Now let's go. It seems as though I have upset the Securitate. Ria said, grabbing hold of woman's shoulder. Wait. That's not. Issei was at a loss for words to defend himself. So you're the Red Dragon Emperor? The maid asked, almost as if she was expecting more. My name is Grafia. As you've most likely realized, I'm a maid employed by the Gremory family, but that's not important. I wish to tell you that Sirzechs Sama sends his regards and wishes to meet with you soon. You mean Lucifer Sama? Why would he want to speak with me? That I'm not sure of, but I do know that he holds you in high regard. He is very vocal about your potential. Grafia said, sounding slightly annoyed. That's all I can say, for now I bid you farewell. Grafia stopped her foot down, and the red light reappeared, consuming the two women, and the next moment they had vanished. Issei collapses back into his bed, as the whole confusing experience had left him rather exhausted. He stared at his bedroom ceiling, a blank expression plastered across his face. I don't think I'll be sleeping much tonight. Next day at the Orc. I'm telling you for the last time, Riser. Riaz announced to a crowded room that consisted of Akeno, Kiba, Kaneko, Raynare, Grafia, and a tall blonde man wearing a formal maroon suit who one could assume to be Riser. There is no way I'm marrying you. Not now, not ever. She glared with determination. Oh really? The blonde man smirked. The way I see it, you are going to marry me, and you really don't get much of a choice. Now that's not true. Grafia spoke up, contradicting the man. Sirzechs Sama figured his sister would object to this marriage, so he will allow Riaz to win her freedom in a rating game. Well that's that. Riaz spoke up as if she had already won. We'll settle this in a rating game. PFFFTTT. The blonde man made a ridiculous face as he attempted to contain his laughter. Really, you're gonna challenge me to a rating game? What, all 5 of you? 4. Raynare interrupted, pushing her tea cart into the room. I just work here. Why ah. Riser's self-control had reached its limits and he could no longer contain his laughter. Ah. Oh, this is wonderful. I should go ahead and pick out a tux, I'm thinking white. This caused Riaz to pop a vein on her forehead. Just for fun, let me show you what you're up against. Riser snapped his fingers and an array of bright orange lights erupted from the Occult Research Club's floor. Then 15 unique girls appeared around Riser as he proudly showed them off. What do you think? Riser sat back on the velvet couch as his peerage surrounded him. This is what a full peerage looks like, intimidating isn't it? Maybe you should just give up now. HMPH. Riaz exclaimed as she turned away, no longer wishing to look at the man. Master. One of Riser's servants spoke up. A small girl wearing a Japanese school uniform with a rather small top that revealed her stomach. She had short pink hair and 2 animal-like ears atop her head, looking like those of cat. She sat next to her nearly identical twin, the only difference being light blue hair. We can smell 2 strangers approaching the building. The blue-haired twin was the one to finish. Good job, Nai, Lee. Riser smiled. Why don't the 2 of you go chase them off? We don't want any interruptions now, do we? Riser. Riaz spoke up in irritation. I won't let your servants go around and attack the students here. Oh, don't worry, they're only gonna scare them a bit. And if things do get rough, I promise that I will personally heal the little humans. Riser smirked and quickly snapped his fingers, and the 2 feline girls quickly exited the building. That's not the point. Riaz argued. Humans can't handle the blam. Blow. The sound of 2 loud blows from outside interrupted Riaz and gathered the attention of everyone present. Then with a sudden crash. The 2 feline girls flew through the door, breaking the old wood door in the process and landing unconscious on the ground. What the? The blonde man exclaimed in shock. Issei-san. That was a bit too mean. A small innocent voice could be heard from outside. Then from the bright outside light emerged a slightly upset Asia, next to a confused Issei. I think you should apologize. I'm sorry. Issei said as the crimson dragon-like gauntlet faded, leaving his natural arm. I thought they wanted to fight me. When Issei turned away from Asia, his eyes quickly widened. Oh god, we broke Ria's door. She's gonna be even more pissed at me than she already is. Issei-san. Asia nervously tugged on the boy's sleeve. I think she has more important things going on right now. Issei quickly observed the room and seemed to just now notice the new people present in the room. I think you might be right. Angry eyes from all of Riser's peerage fell upon Issei. Hey Asia. I can apologize later, she looks busy. Let's go see a movie or something. The 2 turned around as if they hadn't been noticed and attempted to sneak out the door. Wait boy. Riser yelled, causing Issei to stop in his tracks and turned around to face the blonde man. Who the hell do you think you are that you can damage 2 of my precious servants and then just get away with it? Riser's face was bright red with rage. Your servants. Issei looked Riser dead in the eyes. Issei's piercing emerald green eyes burned straight through Riser, down to his very soul. His rage disappeared, leaving him simply aghast. As he looked into the boy's eyes, he felt an overwhelming presence. Intimidating but not frightening, it was a strong aura that demanded respect. So you're a devil like Riaz. Issei continued, taking a step forward. This caused Riser to quickly shut his eyes. He didn't know what to expect, so he flinched preemptively. I'm terribly sorry, Devil-kun. Riser immediately blinked, his eyes open in confusion. When he looked down, Issei was giving a respectful bow, further confusing the devil. What? Was all he could muster. I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have attacked your servants. Issei apologized, head still bowed. I thought they wanted to fight me, which clearly wasn't the case. I acted irrationally and I damaged your pride, please forgive me. Riser slowly regained comfort and understood that Issei was attempting to apologize to him. This was most definitely pleasing to him, as a confident smile returned to his face. Well. Whoever would have guessed Riaz kept such good company here on Earth. He could use some work on his honorifics, but other than that he has decent manners. Riser graciously put his hand on Issei's lowly shoulder. I'll accept your apology, boy. My name is Lord Riser Phoenix, but please call me Riser-sama. Issei held out his hand to shake. Nice to meet you, Riser-sama. My name is Issei Haidu. After an awkward second of hesitation, Riser met Issei's handshake. So Haidu-kun, what exactly are you? I know you're no mere human. I saw your arm change forms, are you some kind of shapeshifter? Riser asked, brushing his hand off on his jacket. Shapeshifter? No. Issei answered. His arm then began to glow a bright red light. When it faded, the boosted gear had been summoned and he lifted it up to show Riser. This is my sacred gear. The boosted gear. Boosted gear. Riser seemed to jump, causing Riaz to smirk a bit. You're the Red Dragon Emperor. Yeah, why? And nothing. Riser regathered himself. I just didn't expect to see someone like you here. I guess that explains how you were able to defeat my pawns. I mean, not many reincarnated devils can match the power of a Longinus wielder. Really? I guess that explains it. Issei lightly scratched his chin. I guess I should have held back more. This caused a vein on Riser's forehead to pop. Excuse me. Riser looked rather frustrated as he confronted Issei. Did you say you were holding back when you one-shot my pawns? Oh yeah, I definitely didn't want the fight to be over that fast, it was absolutely no fun at all. I guess I could have tried sensing their power, but I was barely using a tenth of my own, so I figured they couldn't have been that weak. Issei stopped when he realized that the blonde devil was practically steaming. Oh sorry. I was pretty rude again. Riser took a deep breath. That's alright. Your manners are there, all you need is proper training. It was at that point where Riser realized something from his own words. That's a wonderful idea. Haidu-kun, you must come back to hell with me and join the Phoenix family. What? Riaz and Issei objected simultaneously. Isn't it brilliant? My peerage is full, but no doubt one of my brothers would appreciate having the Red Dragon Emperor at their service, or mother could reincarnate you and trade you to me for use in raiding games. Riser snapped his fingers out of nowhere. Ravel. He called to his peerage, and a short girl with curly blonde hair and a maroon dress stepped forward. Ravel here is my sister, she may currently be in my peerage, but when she is old enough, she will be given pieces of her own, and you'd be a perfect starting place. The Welsh dragon. The blonde girl thought to herself. He must be rather powerful if he could so easily defeat Nai and Lee. I supposed he'd make a good queen. Queen, hold up, I'm not becoming a devil. Issei announced, gathering everyone's attention. Even if I was, Riaz asked first, so you'd be behind her on the list. This caused Riaz to brighten up a bit. But I'm not even considering it, so that was kind of a useless thing for me to add. And Riaz's happiness was gone. Hahaha. Riser chuckled slightly. That ignorance is the first thing we'll have to fix when we get home. It's understandable that you'd refuse to serve Riaz. Why would the Sekiruyute indenture himself to a child, but there is a stark difference between Riaz and myself. Riser's confident eyes looked down on the boy as he smiled. Riaz is inexperienced and young. And I'm a seasoned warrior of the raiding games, undefeated. An undefeated warrior. This definitely piqued Issei's interest. Oh yes. I have never lost a battle. Riser smirked as he saw the shine in Issei's eyes. Issei, don't. Riaz warned, but it was too late. Well then, I have no choice but to accept your offer. Issei said, looking Riser in the eyes, his shining emerald irises sending chills down Riser's spine. If you can beat me in a fight, that is. The fight? Riser asked, lifting an eyebrow. That's right. If you win, then you can have my life and I'll become a servant of your family. Issei explained. Riser thought this over with a hand to his chin. And if you win? If I win? Issei hadn't really thought of his prize, he really just wanted to fight an unbeaten warrior. If Issei wins, I don't have to marry Riser. Riaz quickly spoke up and stole Issei's choice. You're gonna marry this guy? Issei, who was rather late to the party, didn't realize the purpose of Riser's visit. Yes, my family is going to make me marry this creep. Riaz looked Issei dead in his eyes as determination poured from every inch of her body. If you really want to make up for embarrassing me yesterday, then you'll beat the utter crap out of this guy. I don't care if you go all glowy and crazy, beat this asshole. The glowy and crazy comment made Issei pretty uncomfortable, and even Riser was uncomfortable. Either he'd look like a coward or risk losing his bride. Unfortunately, that's impossible. Your brother specifically said no outside help on this matter. Even though he is rather fond of Issei-sama, the only way the Sekiryuute can help you win your freedom is if he's reincarnated. Grafia explained, causing Riaz to sink away into her desk. Well, that's unfortunate, better luck next time, Riaz. Rizer said, now that his trophy wife was no longer at risk, he could focus on defending his pride. Now Issei, what will your prize be? I'll need a bit more time to think about that. Issei answered, still shaken by Ria's words. Right now I'm just excited about fighting, I will answer you if I win. I'll accept that. Rizer said with cocky grin. You say you're excited to fight. I hope you won't regret that confidence. Outside the orc. The group had gathered at Ria's training arena for the bout. Issei stood at one end of the battlefield and a purple-haired woman stood opposite him, with Rizer on the sidelines. You coward. Riaz yelled at the man. You're really such a pathetic person that you'd back out of a fight that you promised to participate in. I promised Haidu couldn't fight with an undefeated warrior, as my queen Yubaluna is undefeated. Rizer argued back. I'm not sure how powerful Issei truly is, he could have been bluffing when he claimed to hold back against my pawns, I wouldn't want to waste my time on someone unworthy. Plus the boy is excited for a good fight, so this should be fine with him. Yeah, it works for me, if Rizer doesn't feel like fighting today. If she's a queen, that means she is around the same strength as Akeno-san, right? Issei said, causing Riaz to facepalm. But is it alright with you? Issei asked Rizer's queen. Yubaluna was a beautiful woman who appeared to be in her early 20s. She had long purple hair that covered one of her eyes. She wore white robes and a long purple dress that revealed a large amounts of cleavage. Of course. I'll do whatever it takes to please my master. With that, 2 flaming wings erupted from her back. Issei, just use balance breaker and end this quick. Riaz called out, hoping to humiliate Rizer. No. Issei said as he pondered strategy. Balance breaker won't be necessary, but I do have a new trick I'd like to show off. Issei began to remove his student blazer and white button-up shirt. What are you doing? Asked the enemy queen. I'm about to do a trick and don't want to tear my clothes. Issei said as he took a spread-legged stance. Oh. He's doing that now. Tiamat said as she landed behind Rizer and Riaz, folding her 2 sapphire blue wings into her back. Tiamat-sama. Riaz exclaimed, startled by the sudden entrance, and Rizer nearly had a heart attack at the Dragon King's presence. What are you doing here? I got up and couldn't find Issei, and I figured he'd be here. She deadpanned. I'm hungry. The CC Chaos Karma Dragon. Rizer said as he shook. What are you doing here? How do you know the boy? I'm his sensei. Now SSSHHHH. Tiamat said as she put a finger in front of her mouth. It's starting. She turned her attention back to the fight as a faint aura began to form around Issei. Hi-ya! Issei yelled as he gathered power. His eyes began to glow a vibrant green as his aura intensified, but the unusual thing was that his gauntlet wasn't present. He's not using his boosted gear. Riaz pointed out. No. Tiamat confirmed. Ever since the incident with Dominating Fury, he's been trying to find a way to use his own power. Say what you want about the fallen angel governor, but he can truly be a genius. That machine of his nearly duplicated Ddraig's physiology when it made Issei a dragon. Right down to his aptitude for draconic power. Tiamat didn't sound it, but she was truly impressed. Issei's a dragon. I thought that sacred gear wielders had to be human. Rizer was utterly confused by the recent developments. SSSHHHH. Your voice annoys me. Tiamat snapped, forcing Rizer to shut up out of fear. Yes, sacred gear wielders must have human blood, but due to certain circumstances, that's no longer the case with Issei. He's a dragon and has the potential to be a very powerful one. AI. Red lights began to shine from the back of both of Issei's shoulder blades, the suddenly rip. 2 red dragon wings sprouted through the back of his shirt and with a single flap, generated powerful winds that caused Yubaluna to cover herself. Ha ha ha, I did it. Now I'm ready. Let the battle begin. Grafia announced. The combatant stood, eyes locked as they waited for the other to make a move. Yubaluna's patience was the first to give. Hiya. The purple-haired queen flung a bowling ball-sized firebolt from both hands directly at Issei. It came much faster than expected, and Issei was barely able to dodge. He watched as the flames passed mere inches from his head before crashing behind him. Boom. A large fiery explosion erupted from where Yubaluna's attack landed. When Issei turned back, a volley of fireballs were headed straight for him. With a series of precise jumps and dodges, Issei evaded the attacks unscathed. Boom. 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 Well. You're pretty good at dodging, but you'll need to fight back if you want to win. The curvaceous woman then began to levitate as she readied another fireball. Let's see if those fancy wings work. But the powerful flap of his reptilian wings, Issei met Yubaluna in the sky. "You're right, I think it is time to take the offensive." Issei stuck his hand out and a plate-sized magic circle appeared in front of it. "I'm not the best mage, but this much I can manage." Issei thrusted his fist through the circle and it came out the other side engulfed in a bright red flame. "How about we fight fire with fire?" She quickly looked at the measly flame surrounding Issei's hand. "Heh." She chuckled as twin fireballs were summoned to each of her hands. "It's your funeral." "Ha." She flung the burning sphere at Issei, who knocked it away with his flaming hand. He then looked back up at the woman, confidence flowing from his eyes, which definitely got on her nerves, and she hurled the second ball directly towards him. But the burning crimson hand, Issei had caught the basketball-sized fireball inches from his face. "I think I've put two and two together." Phoenix, like the mystical bird of flame phoenix. That explains the flaming wings and the aptitude for fire. Issei smiled at his own understanding. The dragon versus the phoenix. Its strange phoenix is always synonymous with fire in myth, but myths are never written of phoenix flame. As Issei says this, the golden fireball is confused and transformed into a sphere of crimson flame. No, legend has it that no flame compares to the heater intensity of dragon fire. Issei then flung the crimson sphere at Yubaluna, who quickly countered with a fireball of her own, causing a large mid-air explosion. "Ha. Is that it after all that talk? I don't think I've ever seen a flame so oog." Issei had used the explosion as a diversion and planted a flaming fist into the girl's stomach. "Hot." Issei pulled his fist back to reveal that he'd burned a hole straight through the girl's shirt, revealing her belly button. Then in a feat of tremendous speed Issei appeared above the girl and prepared a drop kick. Before making contact the bottom of Issei's heel it caught crimson fire. Blow. Issei sent the girl crashing back into the ground and Issei followed behind. "Well, this was fun little experiment, but I'm afraid this is the end," Issei said as he stared down his foe. "What is he talking about?" Raynare demanded from Tiamat. "Yubaluna hasn't lost yet, the fight just started." "It's almost too familiar. They really are too much alike, it's almost scary." Tiamat shook her head as she turned away from the fight. "Utter domination, it's not even fair." "What do you mean, it's the end?" Yubaluna asked as she stumbled to her feet. "I still have fight left in me." "You won't." Issei deadpanned. "You are an incredible fighter from a distance. You can create powerful attacks at such a fast rate that it's almost impossible to evade." The purple-haired queen was confused by the praise, but Issei wasn't finished. "But if someone can dodge your attacks and can get you in close quarters, then it's practically game over for you at that point. If fire is your most powerful offensive weapon, then you lost the moment the fight began. I dodged your attacks, but I didn't have to. I'm a dragon, I'm fireproof," Issei explained. "But I'm a phoenix. If you're fireproof I should have twice as much resistance as you do," Yubaluna tried to argue. "True, but my flames aren't your typical fire," Issei explained. "I don't have the magic capacity to create fire nearly this powerful with a simple spell. Luckily I have a loophole in my own draconic power. My spell ignites the flames, and my power keeps them burning and acts as a fuel, which is why they can hurt you." Issei took a step forward, and flames began to pour out from under his feet. "I call this technique my dominating flames." His entire body was consumed by the crimson flames, leaving only his silhouette and the green glow of his eyes, distinguishable from the crimson flames. "Beautiful," Raynare said as he admired the shining crimson flames. "And this is what it looks like when that form is at full power." Issei began to step into a lunge as he prepared to fire forward. "I warn you now, this is gonna hurt, so prepare yourself," Issei said as he jumped forward. He literally turned into a man-sized fireball aimed directly for Yubaluna. Raynare's eyes widened and his pupils began to shake as he saw the inevitability of the situation. He couldn't stop himself, even though he knew what he was about to do was dishonorable. "No." Raynare lunged forward and a torrent of flames exploded from his hands, consuming Issei and knocking him away from his queen. Boom. Issei landed in a large explosion. "Raynare!" Riaz yelled. "What the hell was that? You interfered in a battle, you dishonorable cretin." Raynare was still a little stunned by his own actions and really didn't have an answer. Lord Raynare interfered with the contest," Grafia announced as the referee. "This disqualifies his representative, so Issei Haidu is the winner." "I accept defeat." Raynare sighed, showing that he did in fact have a sense of honor. "Hey," Issei called out as he rose from his crater. "I decided what I wanted for my prize." Issei slowly walked up to the blonde man. He placed a forceful finger on Raynare's chest and looked up at him. "You're next. My prize is that we're gonna fight sometime." Raynare looked down at the boy's emerald eyes that glowed with determination, and a light pink blush crept across the devil's face. Raynare shook his head and gathered himself. "If that is your request, then I'll keep my word." But it will have to wait till after the rating game between myself and Riaz. Riser turned to the girl and gave her a serious stare. You have 10 days. Prepare yourself. But that orange magic circles opened beneath Riser and his peerage, and in the next second they were gone. Issei stood staring where Riser had just been moments ago. You know that guy. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the JCT1345 for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.